Hey there, and welcome to episode number 45 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. from FEARNET and Icons of Fright. Joining me as always, to my left, Elric Kane.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What are you from now? What do I say? I
I'm still from Inside Horror, but I also am at Jump Cut Cafe, so...
All right.
He's got a lot of cool projects brewing. I had some meetings with him this week.
Meetings?
He's got good shit going on.
I have meetings.
All right, so...
They all involve the Bolex. That's how high-end I am.
You tell me when to change your introduction to something more appropriate.
No, I want people to still watch the old episodes of Inside Horror.
Okay, Inside Horror.
There's some great episodes.
Yes, all right, Inside Horror. And, of course, Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Hello, kids. How you doing?
Good. We normally kick off the show with some kind of introduction or topic, whatever, but our guest is so epic this week that we can't even wait.
I'm excited.
Well, I can say this. Remember, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 weeks into doing this show, I remember saying to you that of all the people I thought this guest would be one of the most interesting people to talk to, you know, and somebody I hadn't met since living in LA.
And you're not just saying this because
I'm not saying his name.
Right in front of us.
Well, yeah, but there was somebody, there's certain people that you're just, especially if you're exposed to work when you're young.
Of course.
That really sticks with you. And, you know, for me, Roger Corman was one of those people. So meeting him and doing a show with him at one point was really exciting because you'd just seen so much of their work that you couldn't even kind of fathom. Tonight's guest, you still don't know who it is. There's so much buildup that he is going to pass out. You go.
Please welcome Charles Band.
Okay.
No pressure, Charles.
None whatsoever. Elric brings up a really good point. The idea of for all of us, the genre is an impressionable thing. The reason we love it as much as we do is because we caught it at that right age, at that right period. Mm-hmm. And to me,
especially our generation. Because it was VHS boom.
You and I were saying that the Roger Corman stuff was kind of the generation right before us.
Yeah, we had missed that for the most part.
But we're the timetable that grew up on VHS.
Yep.
So Mr. Band here is synonymous with pretty much a lot of our early horror recollections and kind of our video store experience. So
yes.
I'm sure you hear that a lot.
No, I do, because I was there when it all began, which is a strange phenomena to be a lover of genre films. And I had my own illegal collection of 3/4-inch tapes. That was before the VHS sort of arrived. And the idea of inviting friends over and playing them an illegal copy of Fantasia, maybe that's the wrong example here tonight, or King Kong, it was, I had that experience for years before the first Betamax machine came out, 76, 77. So I already knew how cool it was. And then, Beta came out, and this fellow, Andre Blay, who's the godfather of home video, he concurrently licensed these 50 titles from Fox. Came out on a label called Mag Video, and everyone was writing like, no one's going to pay $50. This is back in the 70s, for a movie. I mean, The French Connection, how many times can you watch it, is awesome as the movie may be. But I knew that there was a thrill in being able to screen, a big Hollywood movie or even a weird little independent movie in your own home. So the first consoles that came out, this is before VHS, this is Betamax, where you couldn't even buy the deck because you had to buy the damn thing in one of those like Ben Cartwright massive carved, TV consoles, like 400 pounds.
So they looked the same as the televisions. They were
a big, massive carved piece of furniture with a TV and with the Betamax machine embedded inside that console.
Oh my gosh!
So that was, and I was like the first guy who wanted to buy it, so I bought that, which was like absurd. And but then shortly thereafter, the decks came out, and the first movies were those 50 films from Fox, and at $50 a pop. And this is before anyone had the idea of rental. So, my thought was, well, I'm not going to really compete with all that, but let me go buy all the weird independent movies I can get my hands on. And that was great. So I started Media Home Entertainment. And, I had movies like Groove Tube and Flesh Gordon, and, later on Halloween. And then it's a long, I can go on forever.
Right.
This is, I don't know.
Do you remember the first title that you put out?
Flesh Gordon, probably, which was an interesting kind of X-rated, not very X-rated, but you own it.
I own it.
And I knew Dave Allen at that time, who did the stop motion animation, which was the coolest thing about the movie, and he was a Ray Harryhausen protege, so that was cool. And then we had a few public domain movies as well in that first catalog, and we had these beta slaves in our literally, not slaves, but machines. They called them slaves. In the back of my little production facility, we would make these units, these tapes, copies off of VHS Master as needed. And, we were just the first people doing that and the first independent doing that. So to see how that worked and to see that explode in those early days. And then, shortly thereafter, I started Wizard Video, which was a whole different approach. And we had, I Spit on Your Grave and Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Boogeyman. And so the point of all this is being there from day one and watching people getting into the habit of going to the video store. And then suddenly the rental thing happened, which allowed people with not a lot of $50 bills in their pocket to watch a movie overnight. It was just amazing and it's still amazing to me that today we and friends and younger dudes, they go, well, anything we want, we can access instantly. There's like 1,000 different, John Waters says, has a great album out called Amused to Death, which is still an older album of Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, I'm sorry. And the truth is, there was a time not that long ago where you would have no ability as a lover of these movies to see these films. Forget on call at whim; just they did not exist. So you either could watch them, on that rare late night, local channel where they cut the crap out of it because all the good stuff got taken out, or you looked at some of the revival houses and, oh my God, an original print of something or other. Otherwise, that was it. You couldn't just pull a movie out of the thin air, which we can today.
Yeah. Do you appreciate that, or does it kill some of that? Sometimes it feels special to have tracked down a hard-to-find film, or to see a 35 millimeter print has that, that value about it. But now everything is so accessible at a button. And it's hard to pick sometimes because there's so many titles. Do you notice a change in your own viewing habits with that?
Yeah, I have no more viewing habits.
You're viewed out?
I'm viewed out. We're sitting at a table where you guys are drinking beer. Yeah. She's having a green tea and I'm having coffee.
Right.
This must mean something. But well, no, the problem is that again, there's so many ways to dial up entertainment, and it's too much. Yeah. And we have little time because we're all running around like crazy people doing what we do. Mm-hmm. And that little bit of time that you have, that little moment's got to be right for me because I've done it all. So it's like, if I'm not in the mood, I'm just not going to watch it. Yeah. So then you have that rare slice of time when everything's lined up correctly. And then there's like 500 things to choose from. Oh my God, do I do this? I taped that. I recorded this. I got all these DVDs. I should do that. That's kind of work related. Oh, let me just have fun and watch that. It's just, then you say, fuck it. I'm just going to go.
That's just every summed up every night for me where I'm like, well, this is work related. Okay, but I really need to check this one out. I feel bad because I still haven't seen Pacific Rim. I still have not seen Pacific Rim.
Terrible.
But I know. But I'll get there.
You're not missing too much.
I actually wanted to go back a little bit because, I haven't read much about your introduction into the film business because your father was a director. So you kind of grew up in the film business. Yeah. I mean, was that always kind of a given when you were young that this is where I want to, pursue a career, or were there other things you were thinking about, or was it always just movies?
No, it was movies. I mean, I grew up literally on a movie set, and I knew early on that I didn't want to be in front of the camera because my dad put me in front of the camera on some of his films. So I played the son of Steve Reeves. They curled my hair. I hated that. I played the son of, Robert Mitchum. And I mean, because my dad made these movies, the epics, in the early 60s, and then spaghetti westerns and movies like The Hellbenders and A Minute to Pray, A Second to Die. And
sure, he was an AD on one of the best films ever made, Asphalt Jungle.
Yeah.
Which blew my mind.
He was more than an AD.
He was?
Well, no, that's true. He was the AD, but he also he was involved in the adaptation of the material, so he has a...
oh, cool.
Yeah, and he was Houston's sort of right-arm guy for a number of movies.
Wow.
And then, and I guess my folks became friendly with Marilyn Monroe because that was her first. I mean, we're going back.
That's pretty magic.
Yeah.
We can go back. We don't mind.
It's even more magic because they became friendly, and she apparently came over to the house a few times and held me. I was a little baby, and I'm told that I nursed. I like breastfed. No, it's not probably true. But I'm told that.
This is getting more epic.
I want to take it back to the breastfeeding with Marilyn Monroe, and I don't want to leave there.
I'm told that happened, and I enjoyed it. And but no, that was at the time when Marilyn was dating Joe DiMaggio. So there's great shots of Joe and Marilyn and my mom and dad, and so they were all hanging out because of having met on the set of Asphalt Jungle. My dad did Red Badge of Courage. Maybe that's where he got the screen credit as the adaptation of the material. And then Houston wanted to take him to Africa for African Queen. My dad said, look, I got 2 young kids, I got a family, and I'm not going. And then they kind of went their separate ways and remained friends.
Yeah, me and Becca were talking outside how we both remember seeing I Bury the Living very early. She loved it.
One of my favorite films.
I remember it
love
being
that
very
one.
scary on TV. You know, when you're a kid, those kind of black and white films especially, I think, have more power, especially when you're young.
I didn't see it till college, and it was one of those things where he's standing in front of the board and you see the silhouette, and it's almost Third Man-like with the silhouette in front of the white board, and it's just such a beautiful shot.
It's really an awesome film. You know, in Stephen King's Danse Macabre, he listed it as one of the 10 greatest horror films of all time. But, you know, the ending, the original ending that my dad and his co-writer had was those pins came out and people came back, you know, the zombies. And Allied Artists, who I guess funded the thing, didn't want that. They wanted to keep it more of a psychological drama. But the original script, you know, at the end, they messed up with the fucking white pins and the black pins. And, you know, the dead came alive, which would have been very cool ending.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Now, when did you know that you wanted to kind of create your own world, like to be self-sufficient in a sense, not to, because I assume besides Roger Corman, you're probably the longest-lasting independent producer I can imagine.
It is true.
And
I'm just getting going. I'm just figuring this out.
Well, I mean, you're a lot younger than Roger, so that you've got that going for you. But you know, like, did you know early on that I don't want to just make films for hire? I want to actually be in charge and create the worlds and create them, adapt.
Well,
the material.
I learned super early on that I didn't want to be in front of the camera because my dad put me in front of the camera and I just wasn't into it. And I enjoyed the craft of filmmaking, so he had me apprentice at just about every job, that even the bad ones, you know, on a movie set, which very different from today. I mean, you know, even a small movie back in the day was very, it was heavy lifting. You know, there were huge lights and lots of strong people and lots of equipment and gear and cables and 35 millimeter, and it was a big operation. Today you can accomplish almost the same thing with, you know, two guys and a little camera. Right? Mm-hmm. Now those guys have to be talented, which is the problem. You know? But nonetheless, you know, back then it was a big operation, even on a lower budgeted film. So I began to. Well, I certainly learned everything because he had me do literally everything. There were a few really bad jobs I didn't get to do, like as an example, horses. On all these movies, there are lots of horses. I don't like horses, and I had to learn how to ride them because of my short acting career. But anytime you see a shot with the epics of the big Hercules type movies with hundreds of thousands of horses, you know, riding in and out, or westerns, they all come into town. You know, the take wasn't good. Let's do take two. There's always those guys who have to go and clean up the horse shit because that's what horses do. And, you know, back then, it wasn't a quick one-take dealio. So that was the worst job on the set. I didn't get to do that, the cleanup stuff. But
now, what was the one job that your dad had you do that you just despised? Like, did you walk away from anything and being like, God, no, I will never be an editor or a gaffer or something?
The job that was the worst for me, I don't have terrific penmanship. And again, back in the day, actually back up to maybe 10 years ago, when you shot on 35, today they have machines, or they did have machines that did this. But back in the day, you had to, when you made a print, you had to hand. This is in Italy in the 60s, because I grew up in Italy. You had to hand number the negative every meter or so with the number that corresponds to your number on your print. So the negative cutter would know how to find it and cut it. So that was a job. The job being sitting there forever in a dark room with a fountain pen that had white ink, and you would have to write in very small. 001473992, and then match it up to the worst job of all time.
That job's way
blurring.
gone.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about because obviously you were kind of in the business and doing all these kind of jobs. But when I see you speak, especially in the early Full Moon Video Zone stuff, you speak about all these films and all these ideas in the films with such imagination. So what were the films that captivated you as a kid? What were some of the genre things that were your first like influences into?
Well, I had this weird mix of, I was a young kid in Italy. Mm-hmm. There was no TV in Italy pretty much at all. The TV didn't exist. So the entertainment was movies, and I was exposed to great film. I'm not just the imported American or English films, but Fellini and Pasolini. I mean, I was kind of artsy guy. I was for a while. I made little art films. That's a whole different story. But I didn't think about.
Elric's smiling.
I run a cafe called Jump Cut Cafe, so you can. Diorama is one of my favorite films.
I got so good at this. I made 7 or 8 little shorts that my shorts opened for the last year before we went back to the States as a family for Andy Warhol films in these little art studios in downtown Rome. And I used to get up in front of all these older dudes And they would ask, and I speak a fluent Italian, they would ask questions. What about that shot? Why did you do this? Wonderful work. And I just did it because I thought it was cool. But I had to sort of explain,
justify it, right?
Well, all the baloney talk of. So, but to go back to your question, so my influences and what really turned me on, first the amazing music of the mid-'60s, Beatles, and then stuff like Pink Floyd. So I had all this great music that I would listen to. That's still my passion more than anything else. I can disappear into that music, and I always come back with crazy ideas. It always comes when I'm zoning out listening to music. Mm-hmm. And I made mixes before people even knew what a mix was, kind of reel-to-reel crazy stuff. So anyway, music, Marvel Comics. I was a massive Marvel. And I was a Marvel comic fan before, the superheroes, before Kirby and Stan Lee and Ditko brought back, or invented, I should say, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. So these were the superhero comics, Marvel comics. So they were all monster comics, that mainly Kirby, who was a friend for years, was responsible for. So I had these Marvel comics, I had these weird Italian movies, and all this great music. And then once in a while, there'd be an American film that would come, whether it was movies that even back then dealt with sci-fi movies, 50s, Ray Harryhausen, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, one of the greatest movies of all time. I didn't get to see too many of the old Universal films. I discovered them later because it was before video, right? Yeah. So it was before my time. But eventually when those made their way occasionally to some art house, it was like great stuff. So I enjoyed the genre more than anything else, a little more sci-fi than horror. And that's why in the beginning of my career, I made some sci-fi movies. I realized can't make those with no money, So the horror was a little easier to, less expensive canvas. But so I grew up loving the genre, and before you knew it, I was back in the States. And
what age was that? What age did you return to, or actually
20.
Just move here? Okay, so pretty old coming
pretty
back.
damn old.
Yeah,
20 years
so
old.
you hadn't lived in America at all.
Well, we went back and forth, but we left when we were 6. I was 6. Right?
Okay.
My brother, composer, was 4.
Huh.
And
what was going on when you got back in terms of what was the LA
it was a
film
horrible
scene?
time. It was the worst. 71, 70 sucked. It was like, I mean, those beautiful 60s. I mean, I spent time in London. I mean, it was a beautiful time. If you've been around a while, the 60s were an amazing time. And the 70s got kind of dirty and weird and drugs and that kind of stuff. And we came back. My father fell on hard times. He had a great stretch for many, many years, but he wasn't a businessman. So he just knew he'd make money and he'd put it in his checking account. He'd write checks and pay bills. No investment. He could have bought buildings. He could have done many things when things were going really well, as they did for him. But then eventually things dried out. His money dried out. We came back with no money. And so for a brief period of time, because I am very ambitious, I was ready to make movies. It's like I'm not going to let this money thing slow me down.
Right? I like that.
So I worked very briefly on Hollywood Boulevard selling ties, and maybe about 3 months, and that was ridiculous because I'm completely colorblind. So but it was that time when you could match up weird
the gray one.
Exactly. I couldn't identify the color. I would just say that looks awesome. Actually, awesome. No one said awesome back then. So and then I invented a business because I had all these crazy ideas. The business, unrelated to films, made me a bunch of money at age 21, and then I had money to make my first movie, and then I just started making movies. I became like a movie junkie,
I'm sorry, we have a beer mishap here.
So you see what happens?
Did you just dump your beer out?
It's my fault.
He must have brought sabotaged beer.
I did.
It's a little like somebody was in the shop.
When you were talking about the distribution stuff that you started with the VHS, is that where the initial seed money came to then develop your own movies to make your films?
No, that was years later. No, I started the whole beta then VHS. That was 77, 78. Mm-hmm. I started making movies in 75. So I'd already made maybe 4 movies and lost money on every one because I learned that you can't really do this and not control your own destiny in some fashion, because I would give them to distributors at the time who, promised a lot, gave you a little advance, and then you couldn't get them on the phone. So I did that a number of times in a row, and then I finally go, well, this is not a good, I can't be making all the movies I want to make this way. But sort of towards the end of that stretch is when I invented this video business and was the first independent, and that went well for a while, but it didn't make any real money. It was just any dollars that came in, you needed 3 times as much to get to the next month because it was exploding. I had no financing, I had no business. I just made a billion mistakes and eventually figured out what not to do. So media home entertainment, I sold my interest because my minority partners became, I wasn't enjoying, working with them. And at the time, they paid me some reasonable money, which turned out a few years later to be like nothing, because then they sold the company for 20 times what I got. But it doesn't matter. So anyway, I got rid of that, and I was far more interested in making movies, which I was picking up speed and making more and more films by the time we were like in 1980. And that's when I couldn't let go of the video business because I loved the whole thing. And so that's when I started Wizard Video, which was actually a very clever scheme that allowed me to acquire movies and have very low overhead. But if I had really mined that, and if I was just into that end of things, I would have made a tremendous amount of money. But forget that. Much better to lose money making movies.
Right. And did you start the big box, or how did the big box back then, like those initial big boxes?
Yeah, because those big boxes are still, as you know, they're still so iconic. And when I think of, the Wizard videos from my youth, they're sitting there in the huge boxes.
Well, the way that worked, and it's kind of a fun story, but I don't know. I know you want to.
No, we're
that's what we're here for.
We have no cutoff. It's when you leave. When you walk out the door, the show's over.
Okay. Well, to understand why I did what I did with Wizard and how the big box thing came about, I got to give you a minute of background with MEDA, or Media Home Entertainment. Mm-hmm. So first it was called MEDA. People ask, because my first wife's name was MEDA, still is MEDA. No longer my first wife, or my wife. But when I sold it a few years later in late 79, because I just wasn't having a good time with these partners, they changed it to Media Home Entertainment. So if anybody looks at those ancient VHS and beta boxes, sometimes it's like media, but that's what happened. So as I sold out and was spending more time making movies at the time, still not doing any of my distribution, because I was still making movies and giving them to a foreign distributor or a representative and a domestic distributor. I just couldn't stop wanting to be involved with video because it was very exciting and it was exploding, and I knew where all the bodies were buried. I knew where there were a lot of rights to acquire, still at a good price. So I started Wizard, and I did something kind of, no one's ever done it since, and no one's ever even asked me. So here's how it worked. I didn't want to get involved with what was the norm at the time, which was if you were going to be a video distributor, you had to not only acquire films and create artwork and packaging, the stuff that's obvious, but you also had to have your VHS machines, a bank of those. There were very few labs at the time. They eventually came into play, but even when they did, they were very expensive. So if you wanted to be careful in your numbers, you really need to have 30, 40, 50, 100 VHS machines, and the masters feeding the machines and the people to do that. And you had to have this operation, this overhead, which media began to have, and I was not into it. I was just into finding movies. I wanted to acquire rights, and my whole thing at media was, look, guys, anyone can assemble a ton of machines, and eventually there's going to be 100 duplicators out there. But the rights are few and far between, and there's still an opportunity to pick up these rights for very little money. And I had a list of people where I could go for very little money and buy the rights to a lot of cool films. But they didn't want that. They wanted to build up this big, stupid machine. So that's why I left. So I started Wizard. And at the time, there were three, but I'm not going to go on and on in detail, but there were three major sub-distributors in the country. I was very friendly with them because we all started, they all came from the record business. We all started from zero. And, it was a new business. So suddenly, these three guys, one was a West Coast guy that was actually a public company. There was a guy in Chicago, and then there was a guy on the East Coast who was mainly a porn guy. But these are the guys who were sort of the biggest guys in controlling videos and VHS. And they also had their own replication factories or machines in the back of their facility. And so the plan I came up with, which I proposed to them, they loved. I said, look, and I forget the math, but whatever it was, they were going to get a much bigger cut as opposed to the standard, piece of, the wholesale price that they would get in order to then sell it to retailers because they were distributors, sub-distributors. I said, look, here's the deal. I don't want to be in duplication. I don't want to have an overhead. I want to do this with one person in my office. I just want to acquire rights and create artwork, which was a lot of fun. And I had a lot of Italian films I wanted to buy at the time that were offered to me for not a lot of money, which turned out to be most of the Wizard films. I said, I don't want to be involved with the that stuff. So here's what I propose. You guys all have machines. You guys are replicating other stuff, or duplicating, I should say, other stuff. They had public domain lines. One guy had a porno line. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to acquire the movie. I'm going to create a great piece of art. I'm going to print up all the cell sheets you want, and I'm going to print the boxes. And you will have notice. You'll solicit whatever the whole routine, 60 days, 90 days. And when the time comes that you know how many units you want, you will say, Charlie, I need for my territory, split the country up in thirds, I need 7,000 units of the Boogeyman. I will ship you the master and 7,000 empty boxes. And instead of paying me $20 or whatever the number was, you give me $10. So I was basically shipping cardboard and a master, and for about a year, it was incredible. I mean, we're making tons of money. It was just one person. I had one person doing this, and I acquired the rights and did the artwork. So, and I call it the box business. And they were laughing. They were doing great. I was doing great. What changed, of course, was that's when my film career really started exploding. I made a movie called Parasite, then I made Metal Storm, and it's like this whole video thing was like, and then you can't farm it out because I was the guy who figured out how to get the movies, how to package them. I had the relationship. So eventually I did this huge deal with Vestron Video. It was a big video company at the time, and they took over the distribution of Wizard Video. Mm-hmm. But the way the big box thing happened is it's a long way to get here.
It's a great story, though.
Well, it's all true. So I'm doing all this, and it's getting towards the time where I'm getting less and less. I just was spending less and less time, and I had gone to Italy. So any excuse to go to Italy was good because also I grew up there. So I was back and forth, and I licensed the rights for about 100 movies. They were primarily, whether it was Lucio Fulci, there was all these great Italian films, some French films, some mainly French and Italian, mainly Italian. And the problem with the films is, I knew the market pretty well, is the artwork was generally not appealing at all. It was kind of artsy, sort of weird European art. And the titles in most cases were just, people couldn't pronounce the titles here, let alone, be pulled in by what should be something really, really cool. Because it's all about the poster, the campaign, the art, we know that. So what I did was I designed, in a very short period of time, I think about 70 movies. And design meaning I worked with a couple of artists in Italy who were wonderful and very affordable at the time. I came up with all these crazy titles, with few exceptions. I think one of the few movies in that whole group that I never touched the artwork for was Zombie. Zombie just happened to be a great title and a great piece of art. Yeah. But most everything else, all those big boxes, that was all stuff that I invented and went back to Italy 2-3 times, worked with these two artists. I think between the two of them, they did 70 different pieces of art. I still have some of them. They're beautiful. They're only about this big, the originals, but they're absolutely amazing. And I retitled everything. And at that time, I was friendly with a couple of guys who owned these video stores, and I was dealing with my 3 distributor guys. And I guess the way it came to me, and this is a foggy memory that's 35 years old, but the porn guys were they're always the first anyway. They were having a great success with their big boxes, And someone said, until the shelves get full, in the video stores, the big box is better, bigger window, bigger art, bigger awesome. And I was already bummed out because my early days were the 30 by 40 theatrical poster. And, it was Corman, whatever it was, AIP, I worked for AIP for like a second, but, that's the window. That's where we would all, not me because I grew up in Italy, but that's where people would, go to the drive-in and go, oh my God, forget this A movie, this B movie with some chick getting, whatever, tentacles wrapped around her naked body. I want to see this movie. Right. And then they see the trailer, which would be equally as lurid, and then the movie would usually not be so good. But the poster was the whole deal. Right. So I was already bummed out that these great posters, which is where I started my career, theatrical, because there were my early days, there was no video, shrunk down to these little VHS boxes. So the idea that I can make a bigger box and get a little more artwork was fantastic. So that's what we did. Within 24 months, all those movies and all that art that I created, we put into this big box format. And for a while, it was great. People loved it. Now, it cost me more money to make those boxes. So when Mr. New York said, hey, I need 7,000, I don't know, whatever the movie was, a little more money. But for a while, they did great. And then what happened was, exactly as predicted, the video store shelves got full really quick. And then the word came back, we just can't put these big freaking boxes on our shelves anymore. Unless you're porn. If you're porn, you go behind the black drape. Then you get room because whatever. So
you want to flip it over and see the detail on the back.
You want to see the detail.
Were you surprised when it came back around, this interest in VHS and big box? And there's been 2 documentaries last year about the resurgence. And
Yeah, kind of. You know, it's like vinyl. I mean,
Right.
you know, it's the same deal. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, you know, but it's cool. But, you know, what's happening is so many of these movies and things that I was involved in, you know, now it's this nostalgia deal. I mean, you dudes are like, you grew up in the video store. The video store's gone, by the way. I don't know if you noticed. The video store in America, the rental video store, gone.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all mom and pops. There's like one in every city maybe that's super specialist.
Not even one in every city.
I'm just saying it's that era is over. And the death knell was when Blockbuster finally went out of business a few months ago. Right. So that whole era, which I saw begin literally day one, first video store, I had a part in all that, to recently. I mean, that's also unfortunately hurt a lot of young, I mean, not so much just young, independents trying to make movies and trying to recover small budgets because now there's no money out there.
Yeah, you have to go with a distributor now. It seems there's
not even they're all dead. I don't want to depress anybody. That's why we're staying ahead of the curve. We're doing a streaming site. It's going really well. It's a whole new model, and it's kind of weird to think that right now today, unless you're the 1 in 1,000 who creates something so incredibly amazing that. Lionsgate looks at it and says, "Oh my God, we love your movie. Even you made it for $9. We love this movie, and we're going to give you $250,000." I mean, these things happen, but that's not the rule. That's the rare exception. But there was a point up to not too long ago where you made a credible, marketable commercial movie, and you made it at the right price. You would probably make a few dollars. You'd certainly recover your money. Those days are gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I was thinking about your career and thinking about the film Boogie Nights and the sense that a big part of that is when they have to switch from film to video. But like thinking about your career, you go from theatrical to home VHS to DVD to streaming. And each time, in a way, because you're also making all these films, you have to also rethink what the film itself is, how much you can spend on it, because the markets are different now with streaming, even less. So how were you always able to stay? Were you always ahead of those curves, or did you actually get hurt by some of those curves?
Got hurt. I've been ahead of the curve, but there's a point where there's no more curve. Mm-hmm. There's just a hole. There's you can't. Again, there are the few colleagues and people who are still out there flogging what was, an era that's definitely over. They're trying to find ways to still get DVDs out there, all that sell-through stuff and the value bins and. It's just there's no real money. The money was in the rental business, and we're going to look at those DVDs in 3 to 5 years. Like, oh my God! Like we look at a VHS tape today. Like look at these little. Right. We're so lazy in 3 to 5 years. We just want. Even the button pushing is exhausting. You scroll past the C's and D's. I got to make a decision.
Have you ever gone with that thing where they're making you change titles to be A or numbers?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I'm lucky in that first I have a library, and even through the most horrible times, we've kind of survived. And years ago, I saw all this coming, so I've done a lot with merchandise. I mean, we now, we've survived because of the movies aren't what they are by accident. Any excuse for a puppet or doll, I'm there. And the merchandise and the replicas and all that stuff really helps. But 10, 15 years ago, I had 200 employees. I had a studio in Romania. We were making 18, 20 movies a year. And now there's about a dozen of us near Skid Row downtown, not to make it sound awful, but, we're it's a whole new world. But then again, back then, you needed a lot of those people. Post-production alone was, gargantuan. Everything was film and bins and, when you had 8 or 10 pictures going through post, we had just for that 40,000 square feet of chems and it was just a big enterprise. Today, it's like, a dude in his bathroom on a computer can do the same work.
That I always we had Ted Nicolau come show Subspecies too at Jump Cut not long ago, and with one of the guests, who's the actor, the actress,
Denise Duff.
Sure. And it was great, and some of his stories were fascinating. But it made me. That's an example of you being ahead of the curve. Like you were really one of the first producers to go to Romania.
We were the first.
Like that's some of the stories about that sound like the Wild West. What was it?
It was the Wild West.
What was the first production you took out there? Was it Subspecies 1? Or?
It was. I grew up. My dad had the expertise of making what looked like Western movies offshore for many years because he made movies in Italy and Spain and in Yugoslavia. So, and they were supposed to be American movies, even though if you look carefully, no one looked very American, and they were shot in, usually in third world countries. So the expertise, or let's say the training of knowing how to do that, kind of was where I grew up anyway. Then I bought the Dino De Laurentiis studios in Rome in the 80s, which was the most heady, amazing experience ever. That was 50 hectares, so that was 100 acres. This is where, Barbarella was shot, and the Bible, John Huston's The Bible. This was a massive facility.
Is that where Castle Freak was filmed or not?
No, that was years later.
Okay.
No, this was the Dino De Laurentiis studios, and from about 85 to 88 or 84 to 88, we shot about 35, 40 movies there, like From Beyond, all Stuart's movies except Reanimator. Dolls and From Beyond and Troll and Crawl Space, and all those movies were shot. We were like, this is the last of that. It would make no sense anymore to even think of it. But, for a little while we were, all little moguls walking around in our big ass amazing studio.
Were you living there at the time?
Back and forth a lot, yeah. So, and then that changed because market conditions changed, and we were doing theatrical releases all the way through the 80s, and many times 1,000 print releases. And it was because of the structure of the deals, these P&A deals. So we would take movies like Troll out in 1,000 theaters. It was a loss, but we would get so much of an advance from video at the time that it all made sense. So all that changed. That no longer was needed. The dollar, which was very strong, became weak against the lira. It made no sense to be making movies in Italy, even though it was a lot of fun. So that all kind of ended around 88. And then Empire ended. This is when I had Empire. And then Full Moon began in 89. Puppetmaster was 1990. I did this great deal with Paramount. And we went from making 3-4 films in 90 to, I think, 10 in 91 to 18 in 92 to like 20 a year for 2-3 years. And to feed that, I knew we needed another studio facility, and that's when it was really 92 when I went to Romania, 91, 92. That was just a strange, everyone said, even the American consulate said, do not go there. They just had a civil war. Yeah. It's all messed up. There are mortar holes in every building. There's one light in all downtown Bucharest. But that sounded to that I can shoot there for no dough. And that's what happened. We made Subspecies. It was supposed to be a 4-week shoot. I think we shot there 8 weeks. It cost like $20 more. We made what I thought was a very cool film. Yeah. Met some great people, and then it's like, wow, this is the place to really. This is kind of our new Rome. And then within short order, built a big studio there, and shot 150 movies there in the 90s.
Wow.
Of which 3-4 were Subspecies films.
Right. Yeah, and number 2, looking at the production value, it feels like a big movie.
Yeah.
It's everything from the shadows on these giant buildings.
We had giant buildings. We had
exactly.
Great DP. We had lots of gear. We had lots of time.
Right.
Were you using Romanian crews?
The keys in the beginning were all brought over from Italy, actually, because that's where I shot many films in the 80s. So there's a few exceptions to that. So the keys were brought over. Then eventually, the Romanians sort of got up to speed because they always had a great film community there. Even during Ceausescu's reign, he and his wife especially both shot, of course, but they were big. They're into the arts, so they actually funded movies and television, and so there was a pretty experienced filmmaking community there, even when we got there.
And now it's one of the hot spots of world cinema for art cinema, like 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days was.
And the studio I built, which was my studio for a while until I sold out, is the biggest studio in Romania.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, we brought that up last week when we were talking about Clive Barker, about how the last 6 Hellraiser films were all shot in Romania.
Yeah. Going back to your Empire days, what was the biggest hit on VHS for you guys? Was it like Ghoulies? I mean, what was the one that kind of what hit it off?
What Ghoulies for sure. We also released that theatrically, made a ton of dough. So that was actually the first film that kicked off our theatrical division as well. Probably the most successful movie was Metal Storm because I made it for a reasonable price. Universal bought it. Did I hear a strange sound?
Yeah. It was like somebody was super excited about
That's
Metal
okay.
Storm.
Metal Storm. That's funny.
Metal Storm.
Metal Storm. So that was very fortuitous because I had Robert Ramey was a great guy. He was running AFCO Embassy a few years before, and they're the ones who picked up Parasite, movie I made in 3D, which was kind of
Demi Moore, right?
Demi Moore's first film, 20 years old.
It's a good one. The creature in that's really cool.
Yeah, well, that's Stan Winston, who was a close friend.
That was Stan Winston.
Stan, my first movie, my official first movie, I call Mansion of the Doomed. Stan was my effects guy. Andy Davis, who went on to direct The Fugitive and other movies, was my DP. Stan Winston, my effects. My ghost editor was John Carpenter.
Wow.
Richard Basehard, Gloria Graham, Lance Hendrickson's first movie.
Oh.
That was Mansion of the
Was
Doomed.
Gloria Graham with Nicholas Ray's son at the time?
I don't
After
remember.
being with Nicholas Ray for years.
Who remembers? I don't
My
remember
favorite
any of that.
Hollywood
I just
scene.
remember it was pretty cool deal. But
That's cool.
Parasite.
Well,
Parasite. So 3 Second Aside. So Demi and I became very friendly, and without revealing too much, there was this moment where she was at my office. It was after hours, and I had all these posters framed. A few of my movies, but mainly the wizard art that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the most successful wizard movies was I Spit on Your Grave. Do you know the story?
Yeah.
No, I don't know the
I
story.
don't know the story.
This is a good
I
one.
do. That's good. Go.
Okay, so anyway, so Demi and I and whatever, blah, 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 and we're standing there, and she says, "Do you see that poster over there?" I go, "Yeah, Spit on Your Grave. It's a very iconic
Oh,
poster."
completely.
She said, "That's my ass."
That's Demi's
That's my ass.
ass.
I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I was 18. It was a couple years ago. Needed the dough. They offered me $100 to go in Griffith Park and get made up, and they were shooting shots for the poster for I Spit on Your Grave." So she said, by now I think people know this, but back then, please don't tell anyone, but that's me.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a good little IMDb trivia fact.
Oh, is that
Demi
right?
Moore's
All right.
ass.
Yeah.
That's really cool, though.
Yes, there.
I just want to touch briefly on some of the full moon stuff because obviously that's the era that I grew up on, and I actually went to that office downtown, which he's not kidding. It's in Skid Row, and I was kind of scared for my life. But no, I interviewed you for The Intruder.
Right. I remember
But what
that.
I remember is stepping into his office, and you've got like this giant poster, or maybe it's a banner that's got the front cover of like every full moon title. And I mean, it's like, I don't know, like 200 titles or something. It's ridiculous. And it's a little intimidating at first because like, you're like, oh, I'm going to talk to Charles Mann. And then you look over and see all these VHS covers and you're like, wow, he was responsible for all of these. But the point being is the thing that I know people have brought this up a million times, but I'm going to bring it up a million and one. The thing that I always appreciated as a kid is, we were always scouring Fangoria and magazines to get any insight into how this movie was made and stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then, you guys kind of created the DVD special feature with Video Zone.
I did.
And I loved waiting after the movie to see just a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff and hear you guys talk about it. So what was kind of the motivation behind it? Did you want to share the process with fans, or was it more of a incentive for more people to pick up and buy more copies?
No, I can tell you exactly. When I was super young, I discovered Marvel Comics, right? And you have to understand that I don't want to call it the Dark Ages, but I'm actually glad that that's when I was like in my teens, because today there's just too much stuff. I can't even think about how I would be today as a teenager. But so I was very starved, as any American living abroad was, for some of this culture. And when those early Marvel comics came out, I was at the newsstand getting Fantastic Four #1 and Spider-Man #1 and Hulk and all the things that are. We look back and go, oh my God! But I was there, and as I began to read them, I thought, oh my God, this artist who did the Hulk, is different from the guys doing Doctor Strange. I can tell that, but I knew nothing except what my eyes told me, and I really fell in love with the stories, and then at some point early on in that whole cycle, Stan Lee, who still remains a good friend, had something called Stan Lee's Soapbox. I think that's what it was called. So some issues into the early issues of Marvel Comics, he wrote a little thing at the very back that basically said, Jack Kirby did the art for this, and Stan Lee, and we're here, and Marvel's awesome. It was just a little teeny couple paragraphs, but it gave me, the fan, an amazing, super fan boner as to what was going on behind the scenes.
I like that.
Super fan boner behind the scenes at Marvel Comics. Because otherwise, I would have had no idea, and I was thirsty for that knowledge. So, of course, then I began to discover, Famous Monsters of Filmland, and it was very hard to get this stuff in Italy. But our family would go back once a year for a few weeks in the summer. We would, buy whatever we could, and so the whole idea of going a little behind the scenes, I knew was a big turn on. So when I started Full Moon, from day one, I spent the extra money. It was never in any budget to shoot behind the scenes footage. All that stuff I thought would be very useful and fun. And then, we had the first release, Puppetmaster. It was a massive success for me, for Paramount. I had a great guy over there who's 2 years later left, and that's why I eventually, left myself barely, because he was a great guy. And then when he left, all the sharks were swimming around, and I had to kind of get out of there. But while he was there, he protected me. So we all made a bunch of money. I mean, Paramount made money, I made money. And then literally as we ramped up to make a whole slew of these movies, because they were, oh my God, it's Parasite. I mean, Parasite, another P movie. Puppetmaster, you got to make Puppetmaster 2 and 3. And then I came up with other ideas. So I had this thought. I thought, well, look, I'm shooting this behind the scene material. Why don't we do a whole video magazine for the fans that would follow the movie? Remember, this is VHS. This is not like, push a button, get to something. This is like you had to watch the movie, and then if you knew it was there, you then watched what was at the time a good 20 more minute magazine.
Yeah.
So I pitched the idea to Paramount, because even though I was making the movies, they were the distributor, and they said no. They said, yeah, I'll tell you why. First of all, we can't monetize it. You go, okay. And then secondly, it's going to take at least another 20 minutes of tape, which will probably cost us another quarter time, and all the math. And it's like, you're going to spend an extra $10,000. And how are we going to monetize? I said, you're not going to monetize dick. This is a cool thing for the fans. People are going to enjoy this. So it was a real big battle, which I eventually won, because I went back to my guy and I said, look, Jim, I said, you got to just tell these dunderheads that, it's not just about the extra 25 cents. That's going to be a cool thing. So I got the approval, and, we had our first video zone, I think, by the second full moon release, and we got a huge amount of mail, which was awesome. I mean, this is before internet, right? This is like mail, Just people say, oh, I love it. It's so great. So we started doing that on every show, and no one else was doing that. It was brand new. Yeah. No one was doing that. Zero. There was not another independent making a video magazine about making the movie. Yeah. And anyway, so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's what happened. Yeah, well, no, it was cool. It was cool, for sure.
What happened to some of the titles like Ghoulies is one I certainly was a major VHS influence, especially the box, and
they'll get you in the end.
They'll get you in the end. And Ghoulies 2, which your dad directed, which is super cool. What happened
at the Empire Studios in Rome, Dino De Laurentiis Studios? We built that whole crazy circus set. We were like insane people.
Oh, so that's
Did you
that's
do
the carnival.
Ghoulies 1 there too? The castle.
No, Ghoulies 1 was done right here in LA.
Okay.
With a very young 19-year-old Marisha Margate.
Ghoulies 2 is when it gets into Ghoulies 1 you discovered through the marketing afterwards what Ghoulies is, and then Ghoulies 2 he gets to go to town, which is great.
Because it was Satanist, which is my favorite topic.
But it doesn't feel like Ghoulies. That's the funny thing. It's like it's its own movie almost. But once it was hitting star, what happens with some of those titles? Did they carry over once Empire ceased to exist? Like, do you own the rights to do more Ghoulies, or
no.
Does somebody else then?
It's a mixed bag. When I sort of had to leave Empire, I retained some of the movies and some of the rights on all the projects I had developed, which were tons. I'm always like 100,000 movies ahead of the game. So I kept those. I kept transfers, because that was near and dear to me. But no, there's about 30 movies that Empire made that stuck with Empire, and then that went to all over the place, MGM, and
right.
I don't even know.
So do you even know where Ghoulies would be now?
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to make Ghoulies now?
I could go back and they'd probably say, I don't know. There's so many things I'm doing. There's so many franchises that have been working to go back. See, part of the problem is, you guys are like, you grew up with this stuff. But, I'm on the road all the time. I talk to like a gazillion people. And luckily, there's a big chunk of fans who are in their 20s or in their teens. Yeah. They don't know these movies. I mean, they know, they kind of seen them. Their dad showed them Ghoulies or something. But, they're much more interested in some of the other stuff we're doing.
The evil bongs.
They want to see Gary Busey being a pissed off cookie.
Right.
They're more into that.
I mean, Trancers is like there's that movie's fun and it's bad or whatever. Trancers is actually a really good movie.
Yeah, thank you. Man.
We saw a print of that not long ago, and I had memories of it. I like Tim Thomerson a lot. But it's a really good movie, and it really it fits in pretty well with those, the Planet of the Apes and that whole 70s dystopia type stuff. Yeah. But it's also strikes me as the easiest remake of all your stuff. It seems like a big studio could make a version of that.
And one day someone will rip off that one little sliver that was so original, which is how one's consciousness can go back in time.
Yeah, exactly.
We're almost there, because there's like too many time travel movies. Like, okay, how are they doing it this time? But well, there's a good example. If I today even had the money to make a proper sequel, another Trancers episode, and I got Tim in there just for fun, and I got some younger Tim, and I did whatever, I don't think it would do much. I don't think anyone even knows that the market is gone. I mean, the older fans are there, but there aren't that many of them.
So
I guess, sorry.
Oh, do you have the ambition to ever try to make a bigger budget movie like that? Like
I don't, because I have good friends who, I mean, we've all taken different courses, and I have good friends who are very successful, big-time filmmakers, and that's great, and they have the patience to wait for years. I have no patience. If I dream it up now, I can shoot it in 6 weeks. I don't have to. Now, there are recently people who are representing me, so I've never been represented in my life until recently, who are taking some of these projects, because I own most of them, and they're knocking on doors. And I'm sure there'll be a Puppetmaster, like, grown-up Puppetmaster remake or spin-off.
James Wan's Puppetmaster.
Yeah, it'll be some bigger
stars.
budget, and it'll be a theatrical release,
Right.
and that'll be fine if they want to do that, and that's cool.
But as a director, you like just making stuff from like a concept.
Yeah, I
to
do, and
execution.
now I'm really turned on to all the stuff we're doing, especially the streaming stuff. And the old model's gone, so you got to figure out how do you function in a world where the average dude for $8 can become a subscriber to Netflix and see 50,000 movies. What is the value of a movie? And unfortunately, you can look at this and go, well, we're fucked. This is the end of. But no, there's another way to skin the cat, I think, and it's and that's what we're working on.
Does that mean making a lot more product? Like are you trying to make more films every year? Or?
Well, I'm doing a lot with streaming, which will take another 10 hours to describe. But it's just a different approach to how we're going to do this.
Was there a dream project along the way that you never got to realize because of the shifting models? Like something that you would put a lot of time into?
Well, more than time, the most expensive movie I've ever made is still unfinished, and that's a movie called The Primevals. The Primevals was Dave Allen's, who's amazing, again, the Ray Harryhausen protege. He did all my early animation, Laser Blast, like those crazy movies. He did the puppet animation and the early Puppetmaster films. And, Dave had a great project, which we developed together. We put some millions of dollars into it, which seems crazy today. We shot it in the 90s. It was a 12-week shoot, which is a lot of weeks.
Yeah.
We shot some of it in the Italian Alps. We built huge sets at our studio at that time in Romania. And Dave had 350 stop-motion animation shots. He was about halfway through them, and then he died.
Oh, wow.
And so to finish Primevals, even to do it half justice, is not something that I can economically afford.
Right.
Because these are very lean times right now.
Yeah.
But it's something that, I own the movie. We shot it. It's done. It's in the can. We've got almost 200 amazing stop-motion animation shots that no one's ever seen.
Wow.
So that's a project.
It's just the effect shots.
It's the
short,
it's,
like 100
it's yeah, and it's a lost art. You're not going to find someone who knows how to really do that. So it's
David Schmoller, the director of Tourist Trap, and did he do any animation as well? And because I noticed, because a couple of his films had animation. I wasn't sure if that was just he was hiring.
Well, he directed the first Puppetmaster.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And in that first Puppetmaster, there were some of Dave Allen's stop motion shots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Dave Allen was sort of the guy who, from time to time, when I could afford him, and he would come and do some shots, and they would be in the. But Primevals was his big deal, and we'll finish it one day. We'll have to find a clever way to finish it with just a handful of shots, and I'll have to maybe find someone who's resurrect somebody and bring him back from the dead. But no, it's a wonderful project, and when it finally gets released, it'll be like the most retro movie you've ever seen. Day one of its release, because it.
What
it
year were you
feels like,
shooting?
In the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we spent over a year and a half, and got about two-thirds of the way through all the stop motion shots, and they're spectacular. It'll be looking like it'll be like looking at a Ray Harryhausen movie. It had that same sensibility. It was a big adventure. They go into a hidden valley. They discover this lost. Again, the themes of Primevals have pretty much now been little by little. I don't want to say ripped off, but borrowed here and there. So, had we finished it in the early or the mid '90s, it would have been awesome.
I was always curious. We talk a lot on the show about people like Coscarelli, who in the 80s, who just had a lot of imagination in their work,
Right.
And your films are, continue that tradition. But why? But is it just the VHS was a lost, once VHS went under, that kind of imagination left cinema? Because horror genre as a genre now, imagination and like childlike wonder is not what you think of.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, in the 80s and 90s, you guys just took chances with really wacky ideas, whereas now it's like
high concept.
Well,
high concept.
It's very limited market now.
The problem is, as you said earlier, I've had to expand and contract based on the economics.
Right.
So it's weird to think that the movies in the 80s were probably 20 times the budgets I'm shooting movies on now, 20. And the movies in the 90s, maybe 10 times the budget. So a lot of this is a function of, what you can afford to do. So you have to be, the movies need to be more interesting, maybe more character driven, and I still try to do things that are kind of out there and weird. I mean, I can't be accused of playing it safe.
Evil bongs.
Whatever, killer cookies, bongs, and there's one I'm working on right now that's pretty damn cool. But there's still, I'm still working within the constraints of what I can afford to do because I'm in a business. I still need to, make money.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Several years ago, one of the cool things I thought you did, because again, I always feel like you're trying to evolve with the business in terms of video and stuff like that. But one of the cool things in the convention circuit, I don't know where it started, but I caught it in New Jersey at Monster Mania.
Oh, sure.
Where you started doing the Full Moon Roadshow.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if you guys don't know, it was this super cool thing where he would come out, you'd kind of be like the ringmaster host, if you will.
Yep. I saw it in Richmond 2 years ago.
It was great.
Richmond, Virginia. Yep.
But you never, because I stopped doing it 4 or 5 years ago. You probably saw me get up to a little spiel.
That was it.
No, but this was a traveling
he
circus.
Would get up,
oh, wow.
Yeah, he would get up. I think you'd auction off puppets. You'd show footage of celebrity, like outtakes.
Well, we cut heads off. We had stuff on the stage. We got girls to take their tops off, which was always the best part of the show.
Grab
like
people,
Mardi Gras.
It was out of the audience and direct them, and they would do a scene on stage. It was like a full moon experience. It was fantastic.
My gosh.
Yeah, I did that for 3 years. That was crazy. I did 100 cities.
Wow. So I guess my question about that is, I mean, A, why did you do that? And B, like, what did you take away from that experience? Because I talked to a lot of independent filmmakers, in particular our friend Darren Bousman, who directed the Saw movies, and now he makes a lot of smaller movies, but his format is taking them kind of on the road.
He does road shows now.
Yeah, he pretty much. I mean, he does road shows because he's like, that's what separates movies from. You need to give people an event to go to, something to get them out of the house rather than just watching it at home on their 60-inch TV. So why did you do that, and what did you learn from the whole experience? Well,
I did it because there was a point where there was no way to promote what I was doing. In any of the normal media, you couldn't afford, to run an ad or do stuff that you would want to do to let people know you have a new movie coming out.
Right.
So I figured, all right, so much like a rock and roll band went on the road and played their tunes, I would go on the road and create a show that would be, fun, that hopefully I would at least recover my costs, sell merch, and just have like a demented Ozfest, just do something really weird. And
it was awesome.
And the show, when we were really up and running, I mean, we had, there was like 5 different roadies. I usually flew from city to city because I always had to go home and deal with my business, and I was also making movies. So I was like a crazy man. And some of those months I did 20 cities in a month, and let me tell you, that's a trip. So what I had to do, and what I did was, first I had to identify the right venues in every town. This was not like showing up at a convention where someone gives you an hour on stage, which I've done plenty of, and you're there at Monster Mania or Horror Hound or Flashback Weekend, and you do your shtick. We rented, theaters or big clubs, sometimes comedy clubs, because we needed at least 400 to 600 seats. Sometimes we had as many as 1,000 people show up, and so every single stop was like putting together a little convention, renting the venue, promoting it, running some ads, doing interviews, schlepping your stuff across the country, setting it up. We had guillotines. We cut heads off. We did crazy stuff. We had cages. We had girls in cages. I invented movies on the spot. We had light. We had smoke. And at the end, I mean, I would wind up, once the show was done, it was a good 2-hour show. It wasn't like 20 minutes. And I was the MC and the raconteur. And I also had clips from, movies that were fun, short clips. I always had a celebrity or two. I had William Shatner, who's a friend, come to half a dozen of these. I had horror guys that make the convention circuit. So it was a real entertaining deal, and people really loved it. So what I would do is the show would be over, and of course I'd have all this merch, which is the way we funded the show.
Yeah.
Never made a dime. Probably at the end of the day broke even, but a lot of goodwill, and learned a lot, because over the course of those 3 years and the 100 or so shows, I probably spoke to 30, 40,000 people, not performing, like one-on-one. Because what I would do is, when the show was over, I'd say, listen, I'm here. I'll sign whatever you want. I'm not charging. Buy all the merch you can, blah, blah, blah. So then I would sit at the table, and everyone would buy all this merch. We had tables full of merch. And they would come with their their items, and I would sign them, and then there would always be a conversation. And it was always very flattering because they're all fans anyway. Right. But I learned a lot from talking to tens of thousands of fans. So I have that relationship with these people, and it was really exhausting and stupid in a way, but it was great, and it really bonded me to a lot of those people out there who right now are subscribers to Full Moon Streaming and very supportive, and we built up a hell of an email list.
Did you film any of the road
I filmed
shows?
tons of it, yeah.
How come there isn't a DVD or it's not released?
Well, we're doing that. What we're doing is with Full Moon Streaming, we are doing a lot of stuff, and one of the things that we initiated is we have something called The Vault, okay? And what I've done is I started in '89 with Puppetmaster, so I've probably shot, 300 hours of behind-the-scene footage on every movie I've made for the last 25 years. So just like you would look at the Video Zone and see the 10-minute making of Puppetmaster, it was probably 3 or 4 hours of material to cut it down to those 10 minutes. But I have all the original tapes, and I've kept, with few exceptions, everything. So we're putting up all the raw footage at the Vault, and we're putting up a lot of roadshow stuff as well, because we never really cut it into a program. I mean, there's just miles of it, miles of it. So if you're a fan of whatever, Dr. Mordred or Meridian or any of the movies, you can go. I mean, little by little, it's going to take us years to put it all up. It's endless. But even right now, there must be at least 10 hours of material. So if you're a Subspecies fan, I shot the most crazy stuff. I should say I had shot the most crazy material in Romania back in those days, shooting Subspecies, what the place was like, what the people were saying. So we probably have, 4 hours of Subspecies material, Romania circa 92. All raw, not cut. Just, oh my God, that's crazy. Are they really doing that? And it's cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think that answers the question I was going to ask, which is craziest marketing idea. I guess the roadshow's got to be. Was there any other things that you did that were just like you had a wild inspiration for marketing?
Endless. Yeah. I can't even.
I guess Ghoulies on the toilet is it good?
Ghoulies was good. Yeah.
Especially because that figured in more into the sequel.
I used to have a Ghoulies hand puppet. I don't know if you guys distributed those.
We licensed some things. I don't remember the hand puppet.
But really? it was very crudely made, where it was literally like just thumb and
really?
Like a mitten, but it had the little ghoulie on it sitting on a toilet, and you could move him around.
Your films were always more fun. I mean, the Video Nasties period in England and things like Maniac for Lustig. I imagine you avoided a lot of that, but what was the most controversial reception to anything you had made, or was there ever anything that ran into that?
Yeah, there were. And speaking of Bill, we also go back many years. I just literally licensed a ton of his movies because Full Moon Streaming, if you go there, we have the Full Moon movies. Then we have a label that I've had for years. I'm a big Grindhouse freak, so I have lots and lots of Grindhouse movies.
And they've got some really good titles.
We got some really good titles, and I just got a whole ton of Bill's titles. Cool. So, shortly you will see movies that have never been on a streaming site. I mean, you can go buy them if you want to spend money for a Blu-ray or DVD. I mean, he's got amazing titles.
So do you mean his kind of Blue Underground stuff, or is it stuff that he made personally?
Blue Underground.
Okay,
stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Oh, okay, wow.
So they're going to go up. So speaking of Bill, but what was the question? I totally got distracted.
I was just wondering what was the most kind of controversial, if you had any film that fell into those battles.
Well, Ghoulies was a bad one, or good one, because what happened was it was my leap from being a filmmaker and giving my movie to distributors and never seen dough to saying, I'm going to release this movie theatrically myself. And it's a very long story. The shortest version is I had a friend who had a fellow in New York who been in the business for 50 years. These guys, these old time theatrical distributor dudes. And this is like 80 maybe or 81. I forget the timeline. But, this is when the window was closing rapidly for people like Roger Corman to be able to go out and take those movies out profitably in drive-ins and theaters. Because that's, it's just kind of where things were at. But there still was, a business there. So I decided I was going to release Ghoulies, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I was convinced by this New York dude to release it in Manhattan and make 100 prints, and which is a lot of prints at $1,500 a print. Spent about $250,000 promoting it, and he basically said, "Look, you got a cool movie. Movie's all right. Great title, great campaign. One of two things are going to happen. You're going to lose all your money, or you can make a ton of dough. And if that's the case, then you can take those 100 prints, make more prints, and roll them all over the country, and you can do really, really well." I'm a gambler, and I thought, okay, otherwise I'm back with giving my movie to some distributor, and that pattern I'd done for 8, 9 movies in a row wasn't working. So I don't know how I found the money and borrowed the money, but we did it. And a week before opening night, the big deal was to try to get a rating from the MPAA to be able to show the trailer, or the TV spot, I should say, on television with a green band, so that we could actually book that TV spot everywhere. That would be that would have been the big win. And I'm very convincing. I went there to the MPA. They said no. I said no. It's a comedy. No one's going to care. It's fun, because they wanted to do a thing. I forget how it worked back then, but basically, what we didn't want was what they were willing to give us, which was the permission basically to run the TV spots, which is the way these campaigns worked, late at night. Not during prime time, not during what we wanted to run them, and then we also had the problem with the campaign, because it was a ghoulie coming out of a toilet, and they didn't want to approve that. And if you didn't get your rating or your R, you couldn't run it in the New York Times. You couldn't maneuver. There was no way around it. So I remember going to the MPA, doing the best song and dance I think I ever did in my life. And I don't know, somehow I convinced these women that it was really a comedy and they shouldn't be so hard, and it's about ghoulies and it's silly. And I showed them some scenes. Anyway, we got miraculously this. I'm not sure if it was a green band. Whatever it is, we could play the commercials everywhere, and we could run the ads. So a week prior, we had this huge campaign, $250,000. The ads were running everywhere, and we bought, I don't know, hundreds of TV spots, even during cartoons. And my guy called me, who was booking all this. He said, there's good news and bad news. There's a lot of buzz going on, but parents are calling the theater. They're already really pissed off because these kids are like, not able to go to the bathroom. They get really scared. You're unpotty trading a generation of kids. But they said the good news is we think we're going to do very well. So the movie opened. It was a huge success. We did $1 million the first week. Yeah. And Ghoulies actually was the movie that really helped me fund all the Empire movies in the early 80s. So that's really was the big. There were other things that helped, but that was the big one. But a week into it, or not even, by that following Wednesday, he said, look, you've got a decision to make. We have a huge amount of controversy. I was getting the letters, and they were really bad letters. Huh. Dear Hollywood fucker,
I wish you had those.
I still have some. I've been training my kid. They won't go in the bathroom. You scared the crap out of them. You fucker. It's really awful hate mail.
Wow.
Well, because they saw these. At the end of every commercial, is boom, the ghoulie pops out of the toilet, and a voice says, "They'll get you in the end." Imagine a little kid; he sees that.
Right.
He's not going in the bathroom for a long time. So my guy said, "Look, you could change the campaign. It doesn't have to be out of the toilet. The artwork can be a ghoulie peeking around something." He said, "But you may kill the golden goose. The reason why people are going to the theater may just be because of your campaign." So he said, "You got to make a decision." He said, "It's your call." He said, I decided let's just go with the ghoulie.
Fuck the kids.
But the little tag to the story is now it's 30 odd years later. I start doing my road show, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm in front of lots and lots of people, and I would tell the story. And without a doubt, there were a dozen people in every audience who said, "I'm one of those kids you fucked up. I couldn't go in the bathroom. I could not go in the bathroom forever."
That's awesome.
So I've met these people who were damaged for a while.
Great.
Wow.
But they're all fans. They're
right,
all,
yeah, of course.
They turned out all right.
They turned out really all right.
We have a couple of fan questions, but before I even tackle this, why don't you talk a little bit about this resurgence of Wizard? Because I don't know much about it, but I know that it's kind of
what I'm doing and what's actually just happening, which is very cool, is recognizing what's going on. And again, touring the country, I've been given so many movies and audio tapes and music by so many people. It's like, oh my God, I feel bad because I thought, there's no real hope for distribution anymore. There are people out there who are talented. A lot of people may not have the talent because there are a lot of movies that are unwatchable, but some of them are pretty damn good, and there's no hope of them really getting any distribution because there is no distribution. Mm-hmm. Those days are gone. There's no one who would even spend the $5 or $10 to put out a DVD today because there's no place to send them. It's really weird. So I thought, well, maybe there's a way to resurrect the Wizard sort of. Not so much the logo, but what Wizard meant to people, if anyone remembers, in the 80s, which was Wizard was a place where at least North America discovered movies that otherwise they probably wouldn't have seen for a while. All the movies I acquired from Europe. So it was kind of a cutting-edge label at the time that delivered films that nobody had really heard of. Basically, it was sort of what Wizard Video was 35 years ago. I said, well, let me resurrect it as Wizard Studios. and create a mechanism where the label would be one of the labels underneath Full Moon Streaming. So as a Full Moon Streaming customer, you could, or subscriber, which is that's what I'm all about now, is getting those subscribers. It's very weird. I'm a super hooker for subscribers. That's all I am. Because there's a point where if we hit a certain critical mass, we'll be self-sufficient. We'll have enough money to do all the stuff we want to do. There's no other way to get there right now for an independent. So, and we've only been around 3 months. We're having a lot of success. So knock on wood, if it continues this way, we'll be in good shape by the end of the year. So under the Full Moon Streaming label, of course, you find Full Moon movies. That's one thing. And I'm premiering all the new stuff there exclusively on that streaming site. And then eventually I'll take out the DVDs. There's a little business there. There's not much. But if you want to see all the movies we're making this year, you got to be a subscriber,
Oh, so you're not even doing DVD releases anymore.
Not initially.
They're just going straight to streaming.
Well, the last movie I did called Ginger Dead Man versus the Evil Bong, that premiered on the site, and it's still not out on DVD. It's coming out in a few weeks. So people had to wait for some months. But if you're a subscriber, you could see it, day one. And I've got a number of movies that we're doing that with, and I've invented a whole merch component, which is fun and different. But putting aside Full Moon features, we also have the Grindhouse label where I've acquired movies. A handful of them are public domain, but now I've closed 2 big deals. One I can't talk about. One is the one with Blue Underground. So we're going to have a tremendous amount of wonderful exclusive Grindhouse movies that no one can find, at least right now, on any streaming site under the Grindhouse label. And that's
I'm going to ask about one that I don't know if you even have the rights, but I know a lot of us would like to see. Tourist Trap. Is that a film that?
Sure, that's my movie.
Okay, so that's something you
Yeah,
are going to put in
get
there?
it. We got to go there right now and get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
that's on Full Moon Streaming. That's one of my movies that I own.
No,
As a
yeah,
matter of fact,
that's
we're coming
one
out.
of the
We're coming out with that movie on Blu-ray. Which
I think that's what people want to know, like, because collectors, that's such a collectible film, I think.
Yeah. No, that's Tourist Trap. That's one of my films that I made that I own. But so Full Moon, which would be Tourist Trap, then there's Grindhouse. Then we have the thing called The Vault, which I told you about, was all this crazy raw footage that people are really digging. And then I had a label in the 90s called Moonbeam, where I made movies like Hysteria. It was kind of Harry Potter-esque kids movies. So that's on there. And now we just introduced Wizard Studios. And the way Wizard Studios is going to work, the way the program is set up, in a nutshell, is you have a movie. This is a label for filmmakers. This is nothing that we're going to necessarily be involved in or create. But we've opened the doors for people to submit their movies. If the movie is good and fits the mold, the deal is kind of innovative and different. It's a bit of a Kickstarter thing. So the way it works is you've got a movie. We look at it. It's cool. It works. It's got commercial value. And the way the deal works, if you agree as the film owner, is it first gets premiered on date certain on our site. So there's a lot of promotion. You'll promote the crap out of it because it's your movie. So you have about 45 days to promote it because we'll set a date. So as an example, when we opened the doors to this program, we had about 100 submissions. We announced this in December. We've had about 100 movies. And of the movies that were submitted, there were probably 10 that were pretty damn good, of which 5 we've made these deals on. And the first 3 are now scheduled weekly, February 14th, 21st, 28th. And theoretically, we'll have enough movies, the way this thing's working, to have a new premiere every week on Wizard Studios of an independently made cool film. But the way it works, sort of financially and mechanically for the filmmaker and for us, and the reason why it's good for the filmmaker and good for us is they submit their movie, we accept it, and the deal is we'll premiere it on the channel. They have the 45 days until their premiere. It's a little different depending on the timeline, but let's just say 45 days to bring in 50 subscribers who need to subscribe for 3 months, which is $18. And my theory there is if you're a filmmaker and you've managed to make a freaking movie, find the money and gather a crew, you can find 50 people who can subscribe to Full Moon Streaming. Because they're going to see the premiere of your movie. Full Moon Streaming's cool. No one else. There's a lot of reasons why. Plus, we give away freebies and stuff, so it's and it's $18. If you get the 50 subscribers, then you immediately get a $2,500 advance and a distribution deal with Full Moon, where we'll take the movie out on through our channel, VOD, pay-per-view, Time Warner, Comcast, and we'll put it out on DVD. And and I explain all this on the site, so it's not confusing, and it's all written very carefully. The point of this is it's not blue sky. No one's going to make a ton of money. But, for a guy who maybe made a movie for $5,000 or $4,000 or $7,000, they'll probably see $15,000 or $20,000. They'll certainly get the $2,500 up front. And what we get is we get 50 more subscribers.
That's cool.
How does this subscription work? Is it monthly or for
it's
3 months?
It's $6.99 a month. You subscribe for a month, 3 months. The more months you subscribe, up to a year, the more discount you get and the more goodies you get. I mean, we're giving away DVDs and Blu-rays. If you go to the site, it's like we're giving away the store to get subscribers because we really believe once they're and we've had the attrition is almost zero. Once people are in there, they really like it. Because I've also programmed something in there which doesn't exist yet, and that's this whole merch component. Because I really believe that I know that especially our movies work well with that. And right now, any streaming site you go to, whether it's Netflix or whoever, you have one function, see movie. That's all you can do. So what I wanted to do is find a way to not just sell merch, which is tricky because even from it took a while to figure this out and to get the programming done. You are a subscriber, much like iTunes. Whoever you subscribe with, whatever the streaming site is, they capture your credit card information. What you want to be able to do, which is tricky, is now you're a subscriber. Much like iTunes, if you want to buy something and drop it in your cart, you want to go back and fill out the damn form again. You want to be able to do that. We want that so that you can have an impulse buy. You're watching Puppetmaster. Oh, my God, I must have that replica. It's only $200. Boop, I'm drunk. Fuck, man, I'm going to buy the replica. And boom, it goes into your cart. So first I designed this thing with these programmer dudes so that function exists. So if you go to Film and Streaming, it's not just the movies and the labels. You have all the merchandise. Then I thought, well, wait a minute. Let me do something even more bizarre. Let me create let me test the theory of creating a movie where there would be two versions of the movie that you could see as a subscriber on the site. So when I shot late last year, Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong, which is the team up of madness, right? Because I made 3 Ginger Dead Man movies, Gary Busey, Pissed Off Cookie. I made 3 Evil Bong movies. The first one had Tommy Chong. So I invented this crazy premise where these two movies are these characters team up, and it's a crazy romp, and it's a lot better if you're like smoking some weed. Anyway, so I made this movie, and I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. So let me design it so that we can actually stream 2 versions. And my whole model now is everything we're making, everything we're doing, nothing comes out on DVD and Blu-ray for a number of months.
Right.
So people want to see it. They got to see it. They got to be a subscriber. And they get a lot of content for very little money, too. I mean, they get Wizard, all that stuff. They get Full Moon. They get Moonbeam. They got the Grindhouse. It's all the same $6.99. So the way it works is I shot the movie, and I figured, okay, let me find a way to integrate in the movie sort of seamlessly tons of merch, sort of not commercials, but opportunities, things where people go, oh, my God, that bong looks awesome. I got to have that bong, or I got to have the lighter, or whatever it is. So the characters, in a way, introduced this stuff. And then what I did is I took these golden moons, I created like the golden moons, and I hid them in the fabric of the movie so that if you look real carefully, there's 3 shots of you, medium shots in the middle of an edit of, a scene with 6 different people. Well, one of those shots of you in the background on a shelf is one of the golden moons. So therefore I created a treasure hunt. So what happens is, and the theme was sort of ganja because it's that kind of movie. So what I did was when the movie premiered in October, and this was like our 5th week of existence with Full Moon Streaming, when it premiered in October, we had at that point maybe 500 subscribers. You as the subscriber had 2 choices: to watch the movie, the regular version, linear start to finish, or the ganja version. Okay, so the ganja version, and we explained up front so you knew you were, what you're getting into. We had this fantastic, crazy hostess we invented. She was sort of like a ganja chick. So the movie was first full of all these factoids and fun things that would pop up stuff,
Right.
But very clever, most of them pretty clever. And then maybe 8 or 10 times during the movie, tied to a scene, because I invented the film, so it wasn't just some chick popping up and saying, hey, buy this bong, but the movie kind of led you into that. So this crazy chick, our ganja chick, came out and basically tried to sell you some stuff, and she said, you got to click right here, and you could click right there, and it drops in your shopping cart, if you're online. And then I hid the golden moon, so it was a treasure hunt. So the first 20 people who would find all 5 golden moons would get, and I forget what we get, but a lot of cool stuff, like $100 worth of stuff, statues, that, the other. So anyway, this thing was was I just hear myself talk forever here. What the fuck time is it, dude?
It's about 9 o'clock. We're fine.
But anyway,
Well, it sounds like you make it, like, interactive
so we
and-
had, it was just the most amazing response. First, we have all the analytics. So once you're online, you can figure out what people are like eating when they watch your movie.
Right.
So almost everyone watched this thing like in the first 48 hours. And then by that Monday, and we hit the moons it wasn't like real obvious. By Monday, I forget it was 20 different winners, all identified. They sent in the secret words, and of course they all got their gifts, so they love that. And we sold, I don't know the exact amount, but we sold a lot of stuff, which was a lot of fun too, and it just promised an amazing future. So we are now continuing. Not every movie, because you can't make a serious sort of horror movie and have someone try to sell you something. It doesn't work. But for the right spirited movie, we're continuing the ganja versions.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, okay, I'm not going to make 1,000 movies this year, but let me go back and find one of my more favorite movies that are in the spirit of something silly and crazy and do a retro ganja version. So we just shot this a couple of days ago, which was a lot of fun. So I made a movie in the 90s called Head of the Family.
Oh, yeah.
I love Head of the Family.
Oh, thank you.
It is wonderful. It's a head in a wheelchair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's phenomenal.
So I went back to the movie, which is one of my favorite films, as weird as it is. And the fans like it, because when I go on the road, that's one of the movies they all mention. Mm-hmm. Head of the Family, you got to make the sequel, Bride of the Head of the Family, which we announced haven't made. So we took Head of the Family. First, I went back to the 35. I put it on HD so that eventually we'll release the Blu-ray, which I'm trying to do little by little. And we did the same thing. This time I went back with my CGI guy, and we hid the golden moons in a movie made 20 years ago. So, and it's cleverly done. You would never know until you go, fuck, there's a golden moon. How did he do that in 94, And then it's the same thing. The ganja chick comes back. She sells more stuff. And then, of course, I invented a whole line of merch. And even though it has nothing to do with the movie, there's one great moment where I thought, we created all this weed merch for Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. And we have some more that we're introducing in the weed world through a guy who's in that business. There's got to be some way I can actually have one of the commercials sell all this weed stuff we created and some new weed, paraphernalia. So I just figured, well, let the chick, our ganja chick, who's very funny, this girl, Mindy Robinson, she's a very funny, clever.
I've met her. She's funny.
She's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see her, if you go on, if you watch the ganja version of Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong, you fall in love with her. She's very clever and funny. Anyway, so now she says, amongst all the other stuff she's hawking that are in the movie that we're manufacturing, resin statues of heads, the bride holding hands, mugs, you name it. We've created a whole arsenal of crazy stuff. She said, and the family are called the Stackpools, the head of the family. It's about the head of the family. He's got all these other siblings who do his dirty work. He can't do anything because he's just a big head with little appendages.
He's quite cute, actually.
He is cute, especially when they throw him down the stairs. My favorite scene. But anyway, so Mindy says, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Stackpools are big potheads. So we found an excuse to then introduce the merch. So sometime next month, late February, we'll have the premiere of the ganja version of Head of the Family on our site, which will be the second one we're doing. And it's just chock full of fun and merch.
It's funny.
Nice. It's like product placement, except you can actually click and buy
get
something.
it.
That's exactly right.
What also your interest in Marvel as well also ties into, I know one of the questions.
I'm going to get to
he's
that.
going to get more, but Dick Gruner, who is a friend of ours, but also a listener, his question, I was going to ask you early because you kept talking about Marvel, but he said, now that you're doing these crossovers, he said, are you going to try to do like a Marvel universe thing where literally you make a movie like The Avengers where all your characters from Puppetmaster to Evil Bong, all of that came into one universe?
Well, I had... we were on a great roll in the 90s when Full Moon was just getting born and we had real budgets and Paramount was our distributor. And then they became real greedy and then I pulled away and then the business started getting crappy or crappier. But we were setting that up. There were 4 movies that I was going to make. I made 2 of them. I made 3 of the 4, introducing the characters, and then we had a great team-up movie. And this is back in the 90s. So I made a movie called Invisible, Mandroid, and crap, what was the third one? These are all early Full Moon movies, and those characters were going to team up. And I did it in the 80s as well. I had a movie called Eliminators, which was a really cool movie, which few people know about, but it's one of the better ones that we made in the 80s.
Well, you've had team-ups, Dollman versus Demonic Toys and things like that. But
I think another character was in that too, like a third character from maybe like Bad Channels or something, maybe.
Yeah. I've done a bunch of that.
But could you do you think of doing that still, like
for
seeing
even,
the success of
yeah.
Avengers? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
It won't be that. I mean, there's no reason to do a poor man's Avengers. It'll be much more.
I don't know. I think there's every reason to do a poor man's.
Well, I mean, kind of. But it'll be. I mean, we'll use. We have a full moon universe. We've got endless amount of characters. So it'll be, I think, more fun if some of our odd characters team up.
Do you still have some originals that aren't sequels to characters you've already created in the works, like for brand new characters for the Full Moon universe?
The gazillion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Before we hop into the fan questions, I wanted to find out about Delirium.
Okay, so the very awesome Chris Alexander is involved with us in two projects really. One, he's sort of a I'm not sure if partner is the right word, but he's part of the team that is going to and will continue to review the movies for Wizard Studios and help bring in films. And Chris is amazing. And
that's got to be such a daunting task. God bless Chris for doing that.
It is.
I see the stuff that we get for Fango to review. I can only imagine that you guys. Well,
what we do is this. Luckily, we have a phenomenal room full of super amazing interns. So when the stuff first comes in, we kind of weed out things that are just, as my dad would call it, unwatchable. That was his main word. I mean, even some of my movies, I go, Dad, he'd see a rough cut before me. I said, well, how was it? He goes, unwatchable.
Oh, God, that must have crushed you.
Oh, no, he was very blunt, and he was very awesome that way. So anyway, so we weed them out. But Chris is involved in that, and he helped, sort of conceive how this thing would work. So he's sort of outside of Full Moon, he's a very good arbiter and voice in Wizard Studios, which, by the way, right now, I know I kind of already said it. If you go to Full Moon Streaming, you go to Wizard Studios. First, it explains what the program is for the filmmaker. Then it explains what the program is if you just want to support your favorite independent movie, because it's all there. So when someone subscribes, because the filmmaker is trying to get his subscribers up, it's not a hidden. It's a very transparent deal. You can see, this first movie, whatever it is, Virginia Obscura, has 14 subscribers. All they need is 36 more. So everyone kind of is part of that deal. So the first 3 movies are up and running, and we probably have the next 4 movies secure. Now we have to schedule them. So people way in advance read about the movie, see the trailer, and then every filmmaker has a ton of, whether it's IMDb or YouTube or in some cases they've played already some festivals. So there's all sorts of links that if you go to the site, you'll go, oh, that's really cool what this guy's done for his, or her movie. And one movie is made by a woman. It's a very, very clever movie called Vampire.
Nice.
So anyway, so Chris is involved with that. And then Chris is editing Delirium, which will be our little horror magazine, which the first issue comes out for Valentine's Day. So we're around the corner with that. And that's fun for me because, again, being a fan of all this crazy stuff, I've read far too many horror magazines or fantasy magazines, like thousands, especially back in Italy in the 60s, which was mainly Famous Monsters of Filmland, then Cinefantastique and Starlog, and of course Fangoria, and they all begin to blend a little bit because it's and unfortunately, as you said, the fantasy world of what these movies were in the 80s and 90s, a lot of that is gone, and that's mainly because there was more money back then to do stuff that you can't really do today. So a lot of what I've seen recently is I'm not into the torture horror, I'm not into all that gore stuff. It's just not my thing. I've never made those movies. So I just thought, maybe taking genre movies, all exploitation movies, and looking at them a little differently. So in a way, one of the things we're saying is it's the first sort of horror magazine or film magazine made or created by filmmakers. So the people contributing to the magazine are all my filmmaker friends. Whether it's Stuart Gordon or people in Europe. And so when people finally open this first issue, I think it's really, really cool and a little different. But still, it's another horror magazine.
Cool,
nice.
I don't know if you've seen the cover.
I can't wait to see it.
I saw the first one.
The cover?
Yeah, I think so. It went on the initial announcement, yeah.
All right, let's zip through some fan questions since it's getting kind of late here. Okay, so he already asked the Avengers-style question. Jason LeBlanc asks, I read on IMDb and Wikipedia that Dr. Mordred was originally supposed to be Marvel's Doctor Strange. Is that true? And if so, any major differences between the original script and the finished film outside of the name change?
Wow. No, but the story is very interesting. So probably top three things that I'm the biggest fan of from the early days of Marvel are the Doctor Strange comics.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to meet Steve Ditko. I have some of the art. I'm just an insane, Doctor Strange fan. So there was a point in the 90s when I became close with Kirby, and I was also, this was during the early Full Moon days, and I had a deal with Jack, very brief deal, where he was going to develop two projects for Full Moon. And one was called Dr. Mortalis, which was a very inspired sort of Doctor Strange project. And the other one, I'm trying to remember the name, and I can't remember the name, but it was about this man who was very weak and in this sort of wheelchair, but he had this sort of android-type character who would do his bidding and go out and fight bad guys and stuff. And we were just beginning, and he developed the artwork, and I have the two frame pieces, which are awesome. I just don't remember the other name. Anyway, that didn't work out. He got busy, and then he got not well, and the whole Kirby thing didn't happen. But the one I was most, turned on to make, which was not easy, was the Doctor Strange type piece. So I went out and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to use Jack's name because he called it Dr. Mortalis, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Still had the art, so I came up with the idea of Dr. Mordred. And it is what it is. It's an homage, if nothing else, to Doctor Strange. And I used it with Jeffrey Combs, who was awfully cool. The gal was on a hit show for a while. I forget her name. I apologize. But she had a 2 or 3 year run on some TV show after we made Dr. Mordred. But it also took advantage of David Allen, the amazing stop motion animator who was doing those moments for me, because that's that scene which has now been ripped off several times where the skeletons come alive in the museum and battle the T-Rex and I forget what it was. That's all stop motion. Mm-hmm. So that movie was, was a sort of a poor man's Doctor Strange, but was pretty cool. I liked that. And I wanted to make sequels, and too expensive,
Yeah.
Johnny Depp as Doctor Strange, yes or no? What do you think?
I don't believe that.
That's what they're saying right now.
That's the rumor.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like Johnny Depp.
It would guarantee more movies. It would guarantee that he could make. No,
I think he's wonderful. I think he'd be very good as Doctor Strange.
He's eccentric enough, I think.
Okay, from Ben Jones, if you could remake just one of your films, which one would it be, and what would you do different? And he also wants to thank you, since he's like, this may be my only chance. Please pass my sincerest thanks to Mr. Band for countless hours of entertainment and the continual emptying of my wallet.
Okay. Well, first of all, you don't have to empty your wallet anymore. $6.99. Yeah, you'll have so much stuff on Full Moon Streaming, you won't even know what to do with it.
Right.
So there's no more emptying the wallet, because that's the new world today. That's what it is. I'm a huge non-believer in remakes. I hate the idea. I don't like it. I don't want to see movies that I've loved as a kid remade, good, bad, or indifferent. I hate CGI. I'm a big super non-fan of CGI. It looks like cartoons to me. So, there's no reason to remake these movies. Zero reason.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good answer.
Yeah. Well, what about something like hypothetically Puppetmaster? You wouldn't remake it.
I wouldn't remake it. I would, and I've made that clear. So, there are a couple of deals brewing, and if they want to kind of reimagine it and take it in a different direction, I'll have my hands, in it, and I'll be involved. But I wouldn't want them to go back and remake Puppetmaster 1. There's no reason. Come up with something more clever.
Right.
You see shades too. Like even when I saw Looper, I saw shades of transfers.
Yeah,
definitely.
Looper
Without,
for sure.
You could tell that they're and probably made from a fan, not somebody trying to rip you off, which was nice.
Right.
But it is interesting.
Well, go see Pacific Rim and then go see Robot Jocks. Check those two.
I've seen Robot Jocks. You guys sent me a press copy of Robot Jocks, which I loved.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of the Grindhouse ones, I'm such a huge my kind of forte is nun films and Nazi films. So I have been.
We're wealthy with that.
You guys have sent me so much good stuff.
Oh, we have so much more.
So excited about it.
Yeah, nun films. That's hilarious.
She loves nun films.
I have a thing for nuns.
Nunsploitation.
There's a great scene, a couple scenes in Bad Channels where you got crazy dancing nuns.
Why have I not seen this?
Bad Channels.
I own it. I can lend it to you.
Okay, I'm borrowing your copy, Rob.
Subscribe.
FullMoonStreaming.com.
You got it.
Not a question, but my friend Colleen O'Brien says, tell him that my 9-year-old in Massachusetts loves the Puppetmaster movies.
Okay.
There you go. So
Sweet.
new generation coming up.
Right on.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about this because a Tourist Trap Blu-ray was announced and then it got pulled offline, but you say it's still coming. So Jeff Nelson is from Scream Factory is asking about Tourist Trap, and Dustin Putman's asking about Bad Channels. I picked up the Subspecies movies and the Puppetmaster movies on Blu-ray, and they look great.
They're awesome. Oh my God, the Subspecies movies look brilliant.
Well, I shot all these movies in 35, and obviously those negatives all exist. What happened with Tourist Trap is, that picture is made now, 78, so we're getting close to 40 years. It's a long-ass time ago. So what happened was we announced it, and we took the negative out of the lab, and we have some great people who, do the work and the color. It's, it's an art, and you don't want to, change it too much, so you have to kind of respect the original color timing. But then, anyway, it's a long, complicated discussion. The short version is, they did a whole draft, which I wasn't very crazy about. And so then I went to someone else, and it's done now.
And it looks great.
It looks freaking great.
Yeah, it's such a fun
Now, having said that, we're still waiting because David Schmoller, the director, is doing an audio commentary.
Oh, great.
So he's going to do that in about a week. And then Daniel Griffith, I don't know if you know him. He's a really wonderful documentarian, filmmaker guy. He's been doing a whole thing on Empire for years, but he's interviewing David in about a week as well. So we want the Blu-ray to include the interview with Schmoller and his audio commentary.
Right.
Great.
So we're probably a month away.
Oh, wow. Great.
Nice.
Okay. Brian Kazmierski, who is actually Bloody See You Next Tuesday.
We can't say that on the air. I think
I'm uncomfortable saying that word. So
I'll say it. His name online is Bloody Cunt. And at first I was kind of weirded out by it, but it makes me giggle now. So,
in the UK, it doesn't mean as much.
It's true. It's true.
He actually wants to know, only getting one side of a story is never a good thing. What happened with Homemade Horror regarding the Ghoulies statue?
Homemade Horror Ghoulies. I have no idea what he's talking about. I wish I could.
Oh, there's like a Ghoulies toy or something, a recent statue that you guys are selling on the Full Moon site, and I think
a resin statue.
Yeah, and somebody else did something similar, a design or whatever.
No. That's all it's so funny how things get like garbled. I was at a convention some years ago, and someone said, "I love Ghoulies," and he gave me a statue. A little Ghoulie statue, and I thought that's awesome. So because we are now also in the business of making these resin statues, like when you see the Head of the Family resin statue.
There's a Head of the Family resin statue.
Yes, it is. Well, it's about a month away. When you see it, while we're doing this, I'm gonna find it on my iPhone.
I'm gonna get that.
Well, I made two. I mean, we've done two, I should say, and so I shouldn't spend too much time doing this. But anyway. We've had resin statues of the puppets, of the Ginger Dead Man, of the Evil Bong, and I just thought, why not take this Ghoulies statue that somebody made? I had no idea who it was. I mean, this was like years ago, and we make some copies of it. And I think his business was to I'm going to show you. Just I got to take a break. These are the two statues. You buy them separately, but they belong together.
Oh my goodness. And it's actually got the bride too.
Yeah.
So guys, this is Head of the Family.
And he's sitting next to his bride.
Is this image online anywhere?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Well, it's super cool.
I haven't seen that one.
Epic.
And the resin statues they're incredible. I mean, incredible. We have this amazing sculptor who did these. So anyway, I took this statue that someone gave me. I thought, okay, well, just as a fan, or he wasn't even just a fan. I think he actually had a little business making these statues of our stuff and other people's stuff. So I thought, well, let me just take his statue and use that as the model for the 200 Ghoulies resin statues that we then produced. And then when we announced it, he said, hey, I was the guy who gave you the statue. We right away gave him credit and said, hey, it's whoever, I forget the guy's name, and blah, blah, blah.
It's Homemade Horror is
the company.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how to put it exactly. So Homemade Horror made some Ghoulie statues just because they did that. I found one of the statues because he gave it to me as a gift, forgot who it was, and then we made copies of our own character.
Right. But legally, are people allowed to do that? Or
No.
You're okay with it because they're fans?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, no, I mean, no. If he's like if they're in like I don't know Toys R Us tomorrow, you know,
of course.
But
That's
but I love these guys who go to shows and they make copies. I mean, it happens at every convention. You see, none of these people have any licenses. They're out there making, Reanimator dudes, and
But that helps spread the passion.
Yeah,
So
I'm fine with that. If it's in that realm, it's fine.
Let's see. Frank Franny from Twitter asks, does Charles have any Klaus Kinski stories from the Empire days?
Oh, there's too many.
Which ones did you work with Klaus on? Oh, Crawl Space, of course.
Right.
Oh,
Because that's smaller too, right?
Yeah,
David
David directed that.
That's an interesting film. It's seedy, but it's
Very seedy.
I just watched the Scream Factory release of that.
really?
It's quite, I mean,
they're taking
beautifully
some
done.
of my Empire movies out. They did some deal with MGM. I don't know, it's such a convoluted.
We've had them on
deal.
a couple of times. We love Scream Factory. They're good people.
They are. So he was just a very bizarre character. I've worked with two I've observed as a kid very volatile actors because I was on the movie sets of my dad and others. I mean, I was on the set of Ben-Hur. I mean, I've seen crazy stuff.
wow.
But in my direct experience working with actors, the two real unique ones would be Klaus Kinski and Gary Busey. And now Gary is, he's not dangerous. He's bizarre, and if you don't know how to deal with him, you can definitely, you kind of maybe hard to work with as a director. But that's all that is. It's just all kind of surface. Whereas Klaus is dangerous. I mean, he pulled a knife out. He wanted to cut David Schmiller's throat because of some shot that he was not happy with. I mean, he was a dangerous, and you saw it in his eyes. He was a very gifted actor, but he was a very creepy dude.
Yeah, I'd heard.
And it was a very creepy movie. I mean,
and it
the
suited
movie,
that film.
and it did suit that film. And that was one of the movies we shot at the studios in Rome.
No, I'd heard because obviously his talent was far greater than most of the films he ended up being in, besides the Herzog. But I had always heard that it was because, Herzog had said it was because by the end he would only take cash for a role, and so he turned down Fellini, he turned down Leone many times, just people who were like, "Hey, no, we don't pay in cash," and he would take a suitcase full of cash from someone to make.
No, he was a
schlock film, and
he was a Renaissance dude.
Wow.
His biography's incredible. Best book I've ever read in my life. Kinski Uncut. It's been banned in America. I think it just never is in print. It's probably all bullshit. Probably not a word of it's true, I would say. But
I don't know.
But it reads like a mad
amazing
tyrant stream of consciousness. Yeah,
he was all that. And,
I'm writing this down.
That's
That would
pretty
make the perfect birthday present.
I think we had one Twitter question from a fan who wanted to know your thoughts on a film called Dead Hate the Living. His name was Dave Parker.
Yeah, that guy.
He just always, he said I would get an eye roll, and I just did. He literally said, ask him and you'll get an eye roll.
Well, there's nothing to eye roll about. Dave's a super talented guy, did a lot of our behind the scenes and a lot of that material. He worked Full Moon for years, and then it was time, like a lot of these guys, he had to make a movie, right? That's sort of the reward. And I think Dead Hate the Living. Well, it's not. Is it Dead Hate the Living?
Mm-hmm. Dead Hate the Living.
Yes.
Okay. Why am I thinking of it? No, but I that was a cool movie. He did a good job.
You've had other friends like Tammy Sutton's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
And so, but you've been almost Corman-like in that you're a training ground for a lot of these directors.
Yeah. And
is that
some
something
work
you
out and
enjoy
some
or
don't.
something you don't think about, like that kind of, I mean, being a father figure, not literally, but I know Corman plays off it a lot now, whether he did at the time. Is that something you've ever consciously thought about, or is it just work?
No, I mean, it ranges. I mean, whether it was Stuart Gordon, who had this amazing background, came from the Organic Theater in Chicago. I've given sort of a chance to lots and lots of people. And looking back, it's the people who have the training with actors and story. I mean, Stuart's the best example. All the technical stuff. A lot of guys will come in and explain how they're going to wrap a camera under your ass and flip it around and do all. It's like it's meaningless. Yeah. Especially on a low budget movie, it's about it's just about those people you're looking at and what they say and that's really what that's where the magic is. It's not about a bunch of fancy camera stuff. So I've heard every spiel in the world, but a lot of times, people work for me who've, put in a lot of years and they dreamed of making a movie. When we were really rolling and making a lot of movies, that's, in a lot of cases, that's why those people got to make their films because, it was kind of time. They were ready for their break.
That's cool. Did you? I mean, we didn't ask, but I guess it would be interesting to know, like, how did you first meet Stuart? How did that first interaction that led to Reanimator getting made?
My dad was much more responsible than me. I don't remember the exact connection, but this was just one day. Stuart and his producing partner Brian Usna were in our office at the Empire, in our Empire office. I think either my dad or my wife at the time, Deborah Dion, who was involved in development and screenplays, and I don't know how they came in. I wasn't the one who said, "Hey, come on in," but as soon as they were there and they had this project, we all sat down and it sounded cool. We were on a big roll. And Stuart sounded amazing, even though he had zero experience. And he said, "I've never been behind a camera, nothing." And it sounded like the right thing to do. So we did it.
That's cool.
I mean, there's a lot of stories. I mean,
yeah. Well, you guys made a few films together.
Well,
so.
day 4, it was a disaster. We looked at the material, it looked like crap. I said, Stuart and Brian, we have to switch everything. We got to shut this thing down. I got to kind of give you our A team because I really loved the idea of the project, but it was not looking so good. So I brought in Mac Ahlberg, who was a wonderful DP, recently passed away, did probably 40 of my movies, all the really better Empire and early Full Moon movies.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that story.
Oh, he's great. I brought in Mac, and so basically we sort of shifted the crew around to give it the right look, and then production resumed, and then the picture was done, and that was a whole new episode of a movie that the original cut was over 2 hours, and it didn't really know what it was. Stuart would be the first to say, "Yeah, we didn't know what it was. It was weird. It was comedic. It was bizarre." And my dad was great in the editing room, so he was largely responsible for cutting it down to whatever the running time was, 90 minutes.
And one of the other most memorable things about it being the score is also a family.
Yeah, my
connection.
brother's. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And he scored a lot of your films, right?
A lot of
Over
my
the years,
movies.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, speaking of any plans for, because now there's been sudden, like this Reanimator is a good example. There's been a sudden resurgence in horror soundtracks on vinyl, like these limited edition.
I thought you were going to ask him if he was going to do a musical.
Well, musical too. But no, I mean, I love a lot of the stuff that Richard has done music wise. And I know you've sold CDs before, but I'd love to get a limited edition vinyl of his Puppetmaster theme, for
You're going to
example.
see it on the Ganja next
time.
time.
Any chance of that in the future?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, if there's
some of us will buy it.
A trickle of hope anywhere, we're there. We'll make whatever we need to make.
Okay.
Yeah. No. There is a resurgence, and I think my brother actually has done a few deals recently where those will come out. I'm not sure if it's Reanimator, but some of his maybe it was Reanimator. I know he said that he's got some of these vinyl deals going.
Yeah. Reanimator came out, and I think Forbidden.
Is that Forbidden?
No, forget. Forbidden Zone? He directed that one, right?
No. That's Richard Elfman.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Danny Elfman.
The Animator definitely came out.
And Richard Elfman directed a movie that Danny Elfman did the main title for called Shrunken Heads.
Okay, all right.
It's actually a pretty
there was
cool
a connection.
Movie. It was a bizarre connection.
So where are we 10 years from now, you think, with film? Is streaming kind of the next hurrah for 20 years?
And even forget 10 years, I think that much like the music business, it's going to be a little, I don't want to sound depressing for anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say movies are going to be a lost leader, but at the end of the day, it's the haves and have-nots. Either you have a big-ass budget and you can make a big movie and it's going to be funded by people with dough and it's going to go out theatrically, or you're going to have like no budget. And the reason to make the movie won't be to make a return.
Right.
There's just no hope. So you'll make the movie for whatever reason. You want to make the movie, you get the Kickstarter dough and you make it. No one's going to get a return. Or you convince someone that you're going to, 1 in 1,000, you're going to take it to a festival and, somebody with money is going to pick it up. But otherwise, I think it's going to be for the love of making. And of course, luckily, you can make movies very inexpensively today. I mean, that's a positive. The price of admission when I started, unless somebody would just wanted to give you money or free services, there was a set amount of money. It was hard to make a movie for less than $70,000, and that's in the 70s.
That sounds like a fortune today.
In the 70s, that was like $400,000 or $500,000 today. And the reason is you had to buy 35 negatives. You had to go to a lab. You had to develop the negative. You had to make. There was no shortcut. Editing was a big deal. Post-production sound was a big deal. renting the gear. So even if you got everyone for free, today you get everyone for free, you have the gear, you can make a movie for nothing.
Do you enjoy I know filmmakers like David Lynch, actually enjoy the act of making a film now more just because of the less equipment, less crew. Do you like it now more, or do you kind of miss the way a set ran?
I have mixed feelings. There was something magical just about holding film,
Yeah.
looking at film and going into, we had a screening room at 3 of my facilities, so we would cut a reel or look at dailies. We'd sit there on a big screen. It was like awesome. Today it's all
immediate. It's all immediate. It's there as soon as you're done.
It's a different vibe, but I think handled well. It's cool, and it gives people a chance with no money to go out and do something. And I think the model is not only changing as far as distribution and money, but even the length of movies. So I think we're going to see a lot of in the future entertainment that. It won't be 90 minutes or 80 minutes. You call them shorts; they won't be shorts anymore. The attention span today is like I don't know where that's
unbelievable.
at. Yes, right. It's all changing, and I think it's all cool, and you just have to forget all that other stuff.
Right, roll with it.
It's really gone. It really is gone. People don't really realize it yet. I still talk to people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make that. I'm going to get. I said, dude, it's not going to happen. There's no foreign money. It's a different world. You got to look at this very differently right now.
Interesting.
But then again, it also opens the playing field to everyone, anyone who's got some, hopefully, talent, because without that, you got nothing.
A fat farm girl in Iowa, as Francis Ford Coppola once said, right?
About
the future of film.
And then you're in business. And that's cool, So, you just have to think differently today.
Cool. So with that somewhat optimistic,
So, what are we wrapping?
Well, I think we wrapped we'll thank
we'll wrap
Charles for
Mr. Band, and then we'll do a little
what
summary
we
of everything.
saw
You can
this
never
week.
say Mr. Band again. That's depressing and
Charles.
makes me feel like
Charles or Charlie?
just not Chuck, okay?
Okay. Anything but Becky for me.
Yeah.
Makes me cringe.
Yeah, Becca's cool.
I'll
You're the
take
only
Becca.
Becca I've ever heard. Becca.
I'll take it. It's short. It's crisp.
So when I walk out of here, when I get it mugged or something,
Yeah,
we put him out there just for you.
Rush to the car as quickly as possible.
No, you guys are very cool and very informed, and I have nothing really I don't have anything to wrap up. Really, I've just been talking for 90 minutes.
That's okay. No, it's. I think that if anything, we can leave it on a positive note, because even though that. I was interviewing Joe Dante 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about how, everything has changed, because he used to shoot, these huge, massive $1 million, like multi-million dollar movies. And now, he's at $1 million, and, you're either at a $30 million level or you're below $1 million. But at the same time, you're showing that there is a way to still get it seen by people. So I think that that's one of the more positive lights. There's definitely, no matter how low the spends are now, there's still a way to get some exhibition out of it.
Well, we know, because our 2 shows ago, we talked to a guy who made a $6,000 film that was our favorite film of the year.
I loved it.
A film called The Battery that, if you ever get a chance.
Low budget stuff has always tended to bring out the creativity in people. So
limitations.
And that's the new model.
Yeah. And it unifies us as audiences too, because it's kind of the cult mentality of, if we're all getting behind this, it becomes champion. And I sang louder about The Battery this year than I did any other film, just because it was so small. And, I wanted it to get the attention.
Yeah.
So.
Now, in the case of that movie, do you know where it went, how it's being distributed? Is there any...
we do know some stuff, but it's still not
We're not allowed to say publicly.
But I'm just saying
but it has found... It will find,
It'll find a home.
Yeah.
Well, because it's your favorite movie
exactly.
of the year.
And if you march loud enough, somebody will listen.
Yeah, somebody paid it. Somebody listened to us, which is great.
Thanks so much. And we'll be back in a minute just to wrap up.
Oh, we just talked to Charlie Band.
yes, we did.
That was pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool.
So, summations, guys. What did we watch this
Favorite
week?
Ghoulies film, go.
Number 1 is freaking
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Satanist.
You're wrong. Number 2 is
Satanist.
awesome,
2 is the
but
best one.
if you're drinking and high,
Number
John
3.
Carl Buechler's one. Yeah, number 3.
Yep.
Ghoulies
Go to college.
I have an imported out that I've never watched. Is there a 4th one at this point?
there is. Jim
There
Warnowski came in on number 4, and he's a little late.
Yeah, it's
By
a
then,
little not
the charm
so good.
had gone, Jim.
Wow.
The charm had gone.
So favorite full moon movie around the table? Go.
Of all?
I mean,
Of
wait.
all of them, yeah.
Trancers is Empire, right?
Well, I'll count that. Let's
Trancers,
just say-
for sure. Like, for me, I loved it. I
No,
must
it
say,
is full moon.
Subspecies 2 did No, I don't know if we ever talked about it on here,
No,
but how
didn't.
I hadn't seen the Subspecies movies, and we watched number 2, skipped right to 2, and it kind of blew me away how artistic it was and how like and beautiful and how good a film. But Trancers, I just think is a really fun film, and I could watch it again right the second. It's just fun. Like I had a real blast watching that. But
I gotta go with Ghoulies or the original Puppetmaster, just because those for me were my childhood, and they were very accessible to me when I was a kid. Where they didn't come across as like super scary. So those are kind of gateway horror films for me because I watched Ghoulies and Puppetmaster.
Yeah, Ghoulies is too.
Young.
I mean, as in terms of gateway, I mean, I'm not including any of the Reanimator stuff here, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And
That's a
I
no-brainer.
didn't like put in like Tourist Trapper or, any of the like really good films they distributed through Wizard.
The playful stuff that they made.
I will say, like, as for the Wizard stuff, I mean, I still love Headless Eyes and Demonium and the ones like, or Demonium.
Demoniac, right?
Demoniac, thank you. Demonium's a German film. But Demoniac, I mean, I still love those ones that they distributed.
Original Puppetmaster, huh? Have you seen it in a while?
I haven't actually, so it might just be kind of this. I remember it being really good, and that usually means that I shouldn't watch
I thought
it again.
the second one was really
down.
badass from memory. I thought the second one had a lot more action.
1 and 2 are okay. You know what? I totally forgot to ask about this because what I mean, I've said before when we did our episode on threes, Puppetmaster 3 is the best one.
I don't think I've seen 3.
David Dakota. It's called Toulon's Revenge, and it's more of a prequel. It's a standalone movie, which essentially brings them back to World War II, where the puppets are killing Nazis, and it's like you can't get. It's like
is that when you get Tunneler?
No,
Tunneler's the number one. Yeah, he's always there.
He was
No, he's always
second.
there.
He's not in number 1, is he?
Yeah, he's always there.
Tunneler's the one with the
drill.
head. Yeah, he's in all of them.
Okay.
The new one in 2 was Torch, who was like the guy with the thing. The new one in 3 was Six Shooter. The cowboy looking one.
I like Six Shooter. There was a little kid dressed as him at Comic-Con last year. It was like a 7-year-old kid dressed as Six Shooter.
You know what we didn't ask him
awesome.
about, and now I'm going to live to regret this, and I almost want to run down the street and grab him, is that movie The Creeps, where they're all midget.
Oh, my God.
Like where he did like Frankenstein, Dracula, all those midgets.
Midgets, yeah.
And that movie's crazy. So bizarre.
Didn't they do a 3D version of that too?
I did not know
I could
that.
have sworn they released
I would
it.
love to know about the making of that film.
Yeah. The thing I didn't ask him about was the Full Moon comics, because what I was going to say...
comics?
Yeah, I have a bunch of them. And they did Subspecies and Puppetmaster comics. And what I remember about Puppetmaster 2, like the plot of it, which is Toulon had killed himself in World War II, and the puppets used his own potion to bring him back. So he's like this guy with like... He looks like the Invisible Man, essentially, in Puppetmaster 2. But I read that story for the first time in a comic book because they used that storyline for a comic. And I don't know if it was distributed by somebody else or if Full Moon just decided to dip their toe into that world too, doing just their own comics or whatever. But yeah, that would have been another fascinating thing to talk about.
Well, it's clearly somebody who just, reinvents what he's doing because he wants to keep doing it. And that's not, I think there's a lot of, when you're a fan in the middle, if you live somewhere not near LA and you're not part of the industry, it's easy to sometimes go, oh, that person sold out or that person does this. And I definitely was that kind of fan growing up about things if people lost their charm or I didn't like the movies. But what you realize once you live here, it's like, well, you could either survive and do it for 40 years like he's doing or like Roger Corman's saying, or you can make a couple great films and then disappear. And that's the choice now. And it's like, so I think, I think if somebody's going to figure out merchandising's way forward or streaming, whatever it is, it's fascinating to me. Obviously changes the ambition. I'd like that you asked about, are you trying to make an ambitious movie? And he is just like, no. I'm trying to just make movies.
To just stay
and
alive.
that's something that I think a lot of people want to know. I think a lot of people at home going, oh, don't you want to make a big movie like that? Well, maybe that's not important to them,
Right.
Leave that to Terrence Malick.
Well, even though I've said Puppetmaster 3 before, but one of the ones I have the most fun with is Doll Man, which is the Tim Thomerson
Anything
one.
with Tim Thomerson's awesome.
Jackie Earle Haley is the villain of that.
Yeah.
It's a cool little movie.
And I remember that being fun.
And I do have to say, I liked the first Ginger Dead Man quite a bit. It was very self-aware and fun. And
I like clips of all of those kind of movies. If somebody shows me a great clip from something like Ginger Dead, I always enjoy it. I'm not that type who will probably sit down and watch that movie.
That,
you know
that
what I
was
mean?
the fun thing about his roadshow is he would show you these great clips from all the stuff. So you feel, and with an audience, it just plays so much better and you start laughing and stuff.
I do remember one being Crucified. One of the Ginger Dead Men.
The second one.
That looked pretty awesome to watch at Christmas. But
it's all right.
Anyway, enough. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, it was a blast. That is one of the guests I wanted to meet most. So
he was on your bucket list.
He was on the bucket list.
Glad we got him.
And so we just kicked him.
Yeah, kicked him.
So
you guys
quick,
enjoyed it.
And we will keep this under 10 minutes because this will get just too gargantuan otherwise. So quick, any plugs or any things that are important to mention that we saw?
Not much. You know what I just watched? Actually, I've been meaning to tell you guys. and I don't know why. It's just because I have the 3D setup now. I'll buy anything if it's cheap. And my roommate is not a horror fan, so I made him sit and watch Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter in 3D with me.
How was it? Because I never saw it because the critical reviews came back just slamming it before I ever even intended to go see it.
It's ridiculous.
On the count of three, you're going to say the director's name correctly. 3, 2, 1, go. Go.
Timur, so whatever.
That's a fail.
Tibor Takas?
No, Timur
Takas. No. It's the guy that did Wanted and Night Watch.
Oh, that, okay.
And that's how I got my roommate to watch it. He's like, oh, the guy that did Night Watch.
Night Watch is fun.
Here's the thing. Anytime I buy a 3D Blu-ray, I always watch the first 5 minutes just to see how the 3D looks. Mm-hmm. And it actually looked, because Tim Burton produced it, so it's got that Tim Burton look to it mixed with Night Watch. So the first 5 minutes were actually kind of a cool setup. And it's like, you think Abraham Lincoln, you think, oh, the silly beard and the hat. But he didn't look like that at all in the first couple of minutes. It's like, oh, he's just like a teenager that's, wants revenge against vampires. So I'm like, oh, it's inconsequential that he's Abraham Lincoln. It's a cool vampire movie. So I sat and watched it with my roommate. And words cannot defy how retarded the movie gets. It's entertaining. He chases a vampire in the middle of a horse stampede. Like there's this massive CGI horse stampede that ends up with them jumping from horse to horse, chasing each other. Abraham Lincoln and a vampire chasing each other on top of horses. And that's not even the most ridiculous thing that happens in the movie. But that's the thing. It's like, somebody okayed this? This is all right?
Yeah, on a big budget level.
So I will say it's entertaining, but it is far from good.
Wow.
It comes on TV all the time. I just can't push play. I'll never watch it, I think.
I have a friend at FEARNET named Jeff who just got a 3D TV. Uh-huh. So now we're both in the habit of trading 3D movies to watch each other. And I started telling him, I was like, you don't want to watch it. It's so ridiculous. And he's like, Horse Stampede sounds... now I do want to watch it.
Yeah.
So I gave it to him today. I was like, here you go. It's best of luck.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that's it. That wasn't good. Sorry.
Did you watch Dracula in 3D and 3D yet? Because I got my copy yesterday.
I got my copy too,
the
but I haven't
Argento
watched it yet.
Mm-hmm.
See,
I don't know why you'd watch it after you know what it is.
I want to see it in 3D on his 3D
Rebekah
TV.
has asked me. She's like, can I come over and watch it?
I'm like, I'm coming over to watch it.
It's going to be a
join us.
one-shot deal. I'm going to get a few people together. Uh-huh. We know it's not going to be good, but it's Argento, and we're going to watch it in 3D.
Asian nude, I would watch anything with Asia in 3D.
Scene,
yeah, I saw that scene and I liked it.
It was okay. It wasn't like highly sexualized.
Yeah, but her nude now.
They were bathing each other.
No, she still looks good.
She looks all right.
No, she still looks good. Yeah. I'll stand by Asia's
Rob's
body.
picky.
She has a giant tattoo of an angel in her pubic area. I mean, come on.
I know.
What is there to debate here?
Is that hot?
Yes.
Wow.
Listen, nothing's hotter than Asia in Demons 2.
Yeah.
Where she's 12. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's trauma. Trauma. Her first kiss is in front of her dad. Well, her dad.
That's
awkward. A topic that for a whole episode, us talking about
Ozzy Argento.
Because a lot of people don't know this about it. A lot of people watch Dario Argento films and go, "Oh, they must just be really open-minded in Italy because he films his daughter naked or kissing."
It's definitely weird.
She told us at that convention, like in tears, basically told us that's like the weirdest thing that's ever happened in her life, and that she would be crying every time he did it, begging him not to want her to do those scenes. Mm-hmm. So this wasn't like some girl's like, yeah, that's cool, whatever, Dad. Like at those times, she was just like, I don't want to lose my virginity by being raped in Stendhal syndrome. That was her first scene. She had never, I think she said something, she had never had sex at that point in her life. And she had to do simulate a rape scene.
Oh, simulating.
No, simulate.
Okay.
But her first kiss was in Trauma. I think she's topless in Trauma at age 16. So, I mean, I was blown away because I really thought, oh, they must just be a weird family who are totally close. It's all good. And then
it gets weirder in Dracula. Well, I mean, in Dracula, it doesn't get that. It's not like Stendhal syndrome where she gets raped or anything, but there's definitely like a ravaging scene. And it was one of these things where Dave was sitting next to me and he's like, how the hell would you direct that? Yes, ravage my daughter. Go.
Yeah,
grab
her
very
boobs.
Weird.
But
apparently he didn't talk to her until
the card player, because of the card player came up and she was meant to be, I believe it was card player. She was meant to
Giallo. She was the lead of Giallo.
She was the lead of Giallo.
Yeah, but I think she was meant to be in card. There was another one where because of a sexual scene and she said, well, I don't want to do it. She pulled out and her dad didn't talk to her for about 6 years.
That's crazy.
4 or 5 years. And she said she just said to be part of my father's life, you have to be part of his films. And that's just who he is. And so I had to go back.
Totally kidding about Demons 2 because I know she was 12 and that was trying to make a joke. She's super hot in Land of the Dead though. That one I will stand by.
Sure.
I think with the fishnets and all.
Yeah. Sure.
Hard is deceitful above all things. Mm-hmm. She's hot.
Yes.
So Yeah.
That's the point.
But I just think in general, she has, I know a lot of you out there question her acting ability at times. And
I'm one of them.
Yeah, you do.
So do
I. I think she has an energy. I think if you like things like Vincent Gallo and you like actors who sometimes are characters, if they're put in the right film, they don't work in a lot of things. Like putting them in period pieces doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if they're in the right thing, people like that can really fucking connect, I think. So I like her.
I didn't know much about Vincent Gallo, except for like his short-lived role on Entourage, which amused me.
But you paid $1 million for a sperm.
It's $1 million for his sperm.
Marnie is his child.
But I bought his demon. Did I tell this story on air?
Yeah. You
okay.
told us, yeah.
So I bought it. It's not actually his demon. It's Kenneth Anger's demon, and Kenneth Anger gave it. It's a carved demon, and Kenneth Anger gave it to Vincent Gallo for a birthday present, and Vincent Gallo was freaked out about it, so he sold. He actually put it in a wall, and then later, when they were excavating parts of his house, they found this demon. And I purchased the demon that scared Vincent Gallo. So after I did this, I went back and researched his entire career and his website and everything.
His website's amazing.
God, he's one sleazy motherfucker. I mean, Dave loves Buffalo 66, and now I'm like, why? He's horrible. He's like a horrible person.
Do you believe any of that? I don't believe any of it. It's an art piece. And it's a joke. Just like James Franco's whole career now is an art piece.
I do believe he made a girl give him a blowjob on camera. And that for me is pretty
happens
sleazy.
in pornography every day. If she agreed to it and she's a famous actor and wants to do this film.
art,
okay,
man.
and she did go on to do some amazing things in American Horror
The coolest thing about that
so
scene
I will give her that,
is that she was dating Harmony Korine at the time, and that Harmony Korine was like his best friend, and she did that scene. How crazy! That's the crazy part of that movie.
Such a ballsy move on Gallo's part.
I know. I think he said something like, "Oh, she's blown me tons of time before." Or something like that. I'm not saying that he's not sleazy. I'm just saying his website, and I would say 90% of his persona is just that. I would say
I'm going to buy you one of those T-shirts that says like "This is Vincent Gallo's T-shirts."
I'm not.
I will buy you one.
I think my child is Vincent Gallo's child. I'm going on record and saying I think it's his child.
You think Selena ordered the Vincent Gallo sperm?
I think I ordered the Vincent Gallo sperm.
Wait, where did you guys get $1 million?
Why do you think I'm having such a hard time right now? I spent all of my money on fucking Gallo sperm
Gallo's child.
just to impregnate my wife and have a cute
we
little.
We are so far off the rails right now. It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh,
child.
where did we get on Vincent Gallo sperm?
Reel it back.
So this week, I watched 3 movies this week that I have to briefly talk.
Are they going to be long?
No.
Spit it out.
We're on like 3 hours here.
I know, not quite. First one, I watched +1, which is
don't tell me too much because I was going to watch that tonight on Netflix.
Okay, I do have to say, I really liked parts of it. And I watched it, and it came about in a weird way because of a script that Dave had been pitching around, and somebody was like, it's a doppelganger thing. Have you seen +1? And we hadn't yet. So I was like, well, we have a doppelganger script. We should probably watch it. Yeah. And we watched it. It's nothing like it. So that was cool. But I really liked the movie.
Okay.
It's the guy that did The Last House remake.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that director.
So, I know Jerry Smith had mentioned it at one point, and so I put it on my queue.
Yeah, it definitely went places that I wasn't expecting it to go, that I was like, thank you for going there. So I watched that. And then I watched Europa Report because I'd been hearing so many great things about it. And I was like, ooh, I love sci-fi. And it bored me. So it was built, obviously partial funding from NASA, because 90% of like the first 2/3 of the film were just NASA stock footage of rockets taking off and things moving and computers and people at screens and things like that. And then at the end, there's an alien.
Spoiler.
It's not a spoiler. You know that from the beginning. So yeah, it was not my cup of tea. I do have to applaud the filmmakers on it though, because they were able to build 2/3 of a movie out of stock footage. So that part is pretty cool. And then just before I came here today, I watched Ebola Syndrome, which I'm assuming you guys have not seen.
I've never even heard of this thing.
Oh my God, there's an article.
Seen ultra porn.
Okay, there's an article. I called it ultra porn when I got here. It's not. It's a Category 3 film from Hong Kong, which means it's like really fucking batshit crazy. There's an article on it in last month's Fango, which is how I found out about it, because I'd never heard of it either. And so I'm reading it and I'm like, Ebola Syndrome, and man, it looks crazy. So I ordered it, and it's literally about this horrible guy who rapes a woman with Ebola, but he's immune, but he works in a burger place, so he starts spreading Ebola to everybody, and it's just as crazy as it sounds. And it is possibly the most gory film I've ever seen.
Just sounds Japanese to me. It doesn't even sound crazy. It just sounds like, hey, that's what happens in Japanese films now.
That's a Japanese film.
That sounds cool.
Typical.
So, but if you're a gore hound, I highly recommend checking out Ebola Syndrome.
Sounds good. Yeah, and we're hearing a lot of stuff out of Sundance. The one title that piqued my interest was The Babadook, something I had not heard anything about, but hearing some fun things. So at some point, hopefully, we'll nab somebody who was at Sundance to give us the lowdown on some of these titles. We'll see.
Cooties was the other one I was interested in.
Cooties sounds like a lot of fun.
Looks like Lionsgate picked it up.
I was hearing mid-range things about Cooties, that it didn't live up to the hype, but that it was still fun.
Well, I think a lot of people, it's fully comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're saying horror, but it's a horror. It's a comedy. And then I saw the poster just before I came here for the Iranian vampire film you told me about. And the poster's like now, it's like for me, like Kiss of the Damned was bad.
I haven't seen the poster
yet.
It's
awesome. Looks like hand painted. Really? Just red with this little face. It was really cool.
I check that out.
I think Kirla, who writes for Fango and stuff, she posted it today.
Oh, cool. I got to check that out. I'm stoked for Cold in July, the Jim Mickle movie with Michael C. Hall. I read Sam's review and a few reviews coming out of Sundance, and it sounds pretty awesome. So. 2 things to keep your eyes out for. I can't even remember what I watched this week, so I'm not even going to try. But 2 things to keep your eye out for: a Slumber Party Massacre Blu-ray coming out soon, and a Slumber Party Massacre vinyl. 2 things. For whatever reason, I love that franchise. I love that film, and I'm excited about both those things. I really am excited about seeing that in a glorious way.
Did anybody go see Devil's Due?
Ooh.
No. And I wish I hadn't. It's one of those instances where I really do kind of wish I hadn't heard. Like, I'm really bad. If I hear everyone saying something's terrible, it's hard for me to go.
I agree.
I can't justify it. Whereas if I'd heard one person go, no, it's actually really cool, then maybe I could. But because this was so universal, I'm probably never going to see it.
And you know, it's funny. Somebody pointed out to me, because I made the joke, I think last week, about like, even if the movie's bad, at least we got that Devil Baby prank out of it. And someone's like, anytime
that was me. I talked about that, guys. It's part of. I should have a little button here. That's in my dissertation. I have a whole section on that. If the movie's shit, it requires extra marketing efforts.
That might
but it was also like Darren or someone as well. I think.
But you came up with that while we were having coffee or whatever, not on air.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that on Sunday because I talked about how they always have to do something more innovative when the movie's shit.
Carrie, Last Exorcism 2.
Yep.
Right.
This. It's like if they've spent all of their marketing money on some weird, viral video, then the movie itself usually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm sad. I mean, I'm going to see Devil's Due. I'm just not going to see it in theaters.
Yeah,
now.
me too.
I feel like. And again, the other thing I want to defend, I'm kind of sick of this whole online mentality. People are very judgmental on movies right off the bat. Whereas, because I saw somebody comment on, somebody's like, oh yeah, I saw Devil's Due and I didn't really like it. And somebody was being defensive to them on Facebook, being like, well, why? Why would you waste your time? And then I chimed in being like, well, I wanted to see it because it's the filmmakers Radio Silence who did a kick-ass job in the
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's like, before you shit on something, maybe you should look into what it is first.
Right.
Before kind of commenting on it, because I was stoked for it. I wanted those guys to make a kick-ass movie. And who knows, maybe when I see it on video, I'll dig it. But
what I want to know is why it was only 2 of the 5 guys.
You know what? I mistook that. 2 of them got directing credit, but it is all 5 of them.
Okay. So they all were there.
It's like one of them's like an effects guy.
I had known that. Okay, good.
But yeah, it is all 5. It is Radio Silence.
Maybe, hey, look, sometimes this is the thing that if you spend enough time in LA, you'll learn very quickly. It's impossible to make a great film from a shitty script. So for all we know, this is just a shitty script. And these guys tried to make it as good as they could.
And because they were with Fox, there's also the likelihood that because it was a studio pick, we see this all the time in Hollywood, where no matter what the filmmakers want to do, they have a studio paying the bills. And so the studio tells them what they have to do, how the movie has to end, how they have to shoot it. They sounded
pretty happy, like not so much with hearing critical, but on Twitter, whenever I've seen them discuss with people, they don't seem to be defending like, it's not what we wanted. It sounds like they're just like, oh, bummer, you didn't like that part, So I don't know. But you never know until after. Was this
studio funded, or was it one that the studio picked up?
It was a studio film.
It
looked like an expensive movie compared to a real found footage.
See, I still want to see it. I may end up waiting for it to.
I would like to see that and marked ones back to back. Like go to like I think they were at the drive-in together.
Well, marked ones didn't do nearly as well as it. I mean, it did well, but I think it's the least successful of all the paranormal movies. So it's interesting now to see that maybe there's fatigue for this found footage thing if 2 of them came out in January and
we've got 2 more coming.
No, but like there's another way to look at it, which is 4 was really shit.
Yeah.
And so that might have really put a dent in the marked ones, which everyone said was better. maybe a lot of people weren't taking that risk. So yeah, it might be general fatigue, but it also could be finally people are like, oh no, that last one sucked. I'm not going to do it.
I'm done
again.
with the
which
franchise.
is probably what I would have done.
But I mean, they've still got a huge campaign plan for 5 in the fall. So I'm anxious to see how this kind of tweaks that. If they scale it back, if they up the ante on the marketing, and suddenly we have a ton more.
I wish they'd make
crazy
them cheaper.
Marketing stunts.
Like for their sake, for a studio. I'm like, if you're going to make that film, why not make it for $1 million? Market the hell out of it. But why make it for 10 million or 20 million? It makes no sense the amount of money they put.
How do you spend 20 million on that?
And then you make it look like it was made for nothing.
It's one goddamn
you don't
house and
hire
no name
famous
actors.
actors.
Yeah.
I don't know how the budgets on those films.
That's the argument I heard for Devil's Due is that it like the one downside to it is that it had no reason to be a found footage movie, and if it wasn't, considering the budget they had, that it might have been more entertaining. Like it would have, like Radio Silence would have made a good movie.
It would have been Rosemary's Baby or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
But we'll hold off till we see it. Oh, actually, there was one update I would throw in tonight. You can see it on our Twitter, definitely on my Twitter. We'll post it to Facebook, which was one of our listeners actually watched Den.
Yes.
And she posted a nice little rebuttal to the article saying, that she thought some of the points that the person was comparing to are pretty ridiculous given the film she actually watched. And she also provided a link of how you can get this film if you have the right region free.
Right, region.
Yeah, I'm going to purchase it.
I would love the three of us, to sit down and watch it together and do a follow-up show at some point.
Yeah, I think I might try to pick it up this weekend, guys, because I have the nice little region free. We could even hook it up and watch it in Jump Cut.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Yeah, I have a multi-regional player too.
And we have a Jump Cut screening coming up that we wanted to open to our viewers.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Who wants to give the details? Because this is a secret screening.
This is, okay, so we're doing a killer POV screening at Jump Cut.
Of a film unavailable in America.
It's completely unavailable in America. And because it's a secret screening, if you message us on Facebook or if you email us or message us through Twitter,
we'll tell you what it is.
We will tell you the name of what it is, and we will send you a personal invite.
So we have talked about it. That is your hint.
And it's something that I have always wanted to see and haven't seen. And we're going to hopefully do more of those. It is early February.
Yeah, hold on one sec. I can tell you
I know
the date.
The dates got mixed around.
Maybe the 9th. Yeah. I think it might be the 9th.
I think it is February 9th.
Something.
Is it a Sunday or did we do it Thursday?
Well, it doesn't matter.
I'll tell you the date.
If you're interested,
it
doesn't, because they're going to find out.
If you are in the LA area,
no, it doesn't matter at all, because they're going to have to write to us, and then they're going to have to find out the information.
Get the information. But if you are in the LA area,
it's Thursday, February 6th.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter whatsoever.
So if you're in the LA area and you would like to attend a free screening of a very rare, hard to find movie that is not available in the US that we've talked about before on the show, just message us through Facebook and we will send you a personal invite or Twitter. And we will send you a personal invite.
But the date doesn't matter. You can show up any day.
Holy shit,
you can
children.
Come any day and just watch a movie. You can just watch the movie.
Or do you want them to buy something?
They can just come in on a Tuesday and we'll watch it. Come in on a Friday, we'll watch it. Dates don't matter.
Shoot it up on the laptop.
Yeah.
Wow. I have one promo that I'd like to shoot out there. By the time you hear this on FEARNET, we did this really cool little project that we've been working on for a couple of weeks. We are launching this thing called The Vault. It's a page on the site that streams movies, and we've licensed a handful of Blue Underground titles. Stuff like Maniac, Zombie, Dead and Buried, some really cool titles. And what we've done is we've brought in, how do we refer to them? Horror tastemakers? That's a terrible term.
I'm a tastemaker?
I guess. I don't know. No, that, you know what? I just totally stole that from Scream Factory. That's what they said about when they brought us in. No, it's, we paired up people in the genre that are either journalists, actors, filmmakers, and we brought them together to do these insightful commentaries over them, video commentaries, so you can actually see them in the corner of the screen while the movie plays.
It's going to be crazy.
The first one up is Zombie, Lucia Fulci Zombie. It's streaming free, and you could watch it with Brian Collins and Sean Keller talking through the whole movie. I watched it today. I thought it was really entertaining and funny. They get really drunk by the end of it. And the other thing, you also have the option to turn the commentary off and just watch the movie on its own. So we're going to be swapping the movie out every Thursday all the way through March. I don't know when it's going to be, but Rebecca here did one with Dave Parker.
Yep.
Drew Daywalt was paired up with AJ Bowen. One I can't wait to watch, Derek Mears, who Jason from Friday the 13th, the Platinum Dunes one. he brought in his comedy troupe. He does a show with his comedy troupe, and they did a commentary for the original Maniac.
Wow.
I want to watch.
Which isn't exactly a laugh out loud.
Exactly, which is why I'm curious. Amber Benson and Sam Levine did a commentary together. So there's a whole bunch of them. They're coming up, and as you hear this, the first one should be up online.
Next time, pair me up with Amber Benson. Not that Dave Parker isn't phenomenal and beautiful, and I love him dearly, but I have a thing for Amber.
Well, if these do well, then we'll get to do a few more.
Woo! Or you could just put the three of us
Maybe
in,
me and
and
Elric
it'll
will
be
get to
like
do one.
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. You got snubbed at work. Jeez.
I got snubbed.
But that's probably because you work there.
Yeah.
People
Well, I
always
asked
overlook
Elise.
that
I was like, when they first approached me, I was like, I claim Elise because we have a really good time together and a really good rapport together. And they were like, nope, we've already paired you up. But I love Dave Parker.
Well, it's funny to me
dearly.
is,
He's
like,
great.
Three of the people they asked, all like, because initially they're like, oh, who would you like to be paired up with? And three of them I know for a fact said, oh, well, Rob G would be cool. and they were like, anyone else? And it's like, they really don't want you to do this thing.
That's funny.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
That's all right, fine. So tune in for that. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, tune into for the place that Rob used to work at before tonight's show. I'm just kidding.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So that's that. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing next week.
I think Wes Craven's on tap. It's probably going to happen.
We got David Lynch on standby.
Yeah,
Wes
Lynch is
Craven
backup.
on tap.
Lynch is probably our backup guest.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could have them both on together, but I don't know. We promised Tarantino a slot, so we'll see what goes down.
Actually, we could be. Yeah, again, another conversation that we'll have to
that's a whole
save.
conversation.
All the script leaks, WikiLeaks 2000.
Because I got into a huge discussion with Dave today on script leaks, and actually Elric and I were talking about it too at lunch. The idea of leaking and it being used as a marketing tool, but then, what do you expect to get from it? And Brian Collins made a really good point on Facebook, that this is very much comparable to the Napster thing. Mm-hmm. And so
I also think that such a
debate.
low percentage of people are going to read that thing that it is kind of a
care.
It's a crybaby move. It's like, I don't care. Make it or don't make it. You've got plenty of other ideas. That's fine. But the point is, if you really think that ruins your film, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's
I
stupid.
mean, like,
I won't read it. I don't want to read it. I want to watch your
as
movie.
indie to horror as you can get. And I don't think any of the three of us would ever read it.
Yeah.
So
there's a small percentage of the population that goes to see Quentin Tarantino movies that would actually read the script beforehand. It's mostly like, cinema nuts like us or people that are in the industry, but that's a small percentage of the people.
I want to watch a Tarantino film.
Yeah,
I don't care about
read his scripts.
So
I'm sure they're great, but
I think he's probably feeling betrayal. So good. Yeah, react emotionally, but I just think doing this in the press, boring, move on. Give it to Gareth Evans and move on. Because everyone's, jizzing about the Raid 2. So.
The Raid 2.
Looks pretty good.
I'm so excited for it.
Looks pretty good.
So, okay. Well, next week, we've got our list of fine folks that we're having on.
Yes. Yeah. So if you have any questions for Wes Craven, probably write him a letter.
Yeah.
Because he won't be here.
Tell him he should be on.
We'll figure it out.
Cool. We'll talk to you next week. And until then, don't go see Knights of Badassdom and enjoy your week.
Yeah.